Noche del 12 de febrero, fiesta de la Candelaria, una ventana, un lucero y un ritmo mestizo y paria. Noche del 12 de febrero, fiesta de la Candelaria, una ventana, un lucero y un ritmo mestizo y paria. Mira que el niño no acabe, sal muchacha que no calle, que todo el pueblo ya sabe que te está creciendo el talle y los senos no te caben en tu vestido de calle. Y los senos no te caben en tu vestido de calle. En la Candelaria cuando llegará.
So this year is definitely bigger than last year, as you can tell by my fanny pack. It's pretty much impossible to run one of these things without a fanny pack, I've realized. So, please ignore the fanny pack. All right, so what we got going on? MoneroTopia24. Obviously, is this the first time for anybody? All right, that's a good sign. Look at that. That's growth. All right, so we're just getting started today. As you'll see, things will start to warm up more. It's kind of a constant metamorphosis around here in Huerta Roma. Things are always changing. It's kind of like the Monero protocol. We're constantly upgrading around here. So what you're seeing right now isn't the final state of the conference. Things will continue to improve and upgrade as we go, as happened in the past. What MoneroTopia is all about is building out a peer-to-peer digital cash economy. That's the real theme of the event, of the conference, and all the talks basically circle around that. So we have talks on kind of the philosophical concepts, the reasons why why as a society we would want to even consider opting out and living off of each other peer-to-peer with digital cash. We're talking about it from a philosophical standpoint, why that matters, why we should do it. We have then technical talks about what many of us consider the best tool for doing that, which is Monero. So we have an extensive amount of technical talks on Monero itself. We have other privacy tech projects that are also working on tools for digital cash purposes and privacy tech in general. We'll be getting presentations on those. And yeah, then we just have practical talks on opting out itself. Like, how do we actually do it? What are the steps we do? You know, we can all talk about these tools all day, but how do we get to the point where we're using them on a daily basis and where we're actually gaining utility from them? So those are kind of the main pillars of the conference, and that's what we're hoping people walk away with. There is a Monero accepting marketplace that's set up outside. Today we have about like 16 Monero accepting vendors that are out there. They'll be there today and tomorrow. They're all onboarded, all the ones that are out there today. If they're having issues, you know, walk them through it. Find a Spanish speaker. This is like, we're getting all of you to engage as well, right? So help people along. If the vendors are using Cake Wallet or Monero usually for the first time, walk them through it, teach them about it, send them some Monero, buy some things, get them excited about Monero, explain Monero. So the only way this works is we literally have to onboard people one by one, right? So I've been talking to these vendors for like the last 2 weeks, getting them to go one by one, but it's a process. That's how it's going to happen. We have the workshops that will be going on. There's a little map floating around, but you'll figure out the space. So there's the Monero Marketplace, and then if you walk a little further, you'll hit the workshop area. We'll have the workshops on the schedule. You can learn how to use a graphene phone. There's a Monero 101 workshop in Spanish. We'll be trying to get locals to attend that. There's a workshop on using Tor, running Tor nodes. There's a workshop on silent payments, I believe in Spanish. And then if you walk a little further down, you'll start to get to where all the conference vendors are, all the sponsors and people that have tables set up for MoneroTopia in particular. We're kicking this off in English and Spanish because I'm told that there is some media. Is there any media in the audience? Is there actually any media in the audience? Raise your hand. All right, I'm not seeing too many hands go up on that one. We were told that there'd be some people here reporting on it. But we'll have Anhdres basically restate what I kind of said here in Spanish, welcoming people into MoneroTopia, explaining what we're even doing here. And then we're gonna have Roy jump up, and he's gonna give a talk on basically welcoming you all to Mexico City and an overview, exciting talk on why you guys should all care about MoneroTopia and Monero in the first place. So we're gonna kick it off with Anhdres, and we'll take it from there. Thank you guys.
Hola, hola. Bien. Ahora, para lo que mejor no entendieron lo que dijo Doug, ¿hay alguien de prensa acá? Levante la mano. 1, 2, 3, perfecto. No habían entendido la pregunta de Doug. Bueno, bienvenidos a todos a MoneroTopia. Vamos a tratar de imitar la energía que tiene Doug siempre. ¿Quiénes hablan español en general acá? Bien, más o menos. Más o menos la mitad. Bien, estamos bien. Bueno, bienvenidos a MoneroTopia. Esta es una gran conferencia de Monero. Es una de las dos conferencias que hay, MoneroCon y MoneroTopia. MoneroTopia es en México, como podrán ver. Es una buena ubicación, queda cerca de Estados Unidos y de otros lugares de Europa, no tan lejos como ir a Argentina. Yo soy de Argentina. Y es un lugar que nos ha recibido siempre muy bien, el año pasado y acá. Hay muchas cosas para hacer, como podrán ver. El predio es bastante grande. Uno se puede perder un poco, está lleno de caminos pequeños, así que había un mapa por ahí dando vueltas, pero vamos a ver si lo encontramos otra vez, pero se puede más o menos guiar. Hoy va a haber, son 4 días que vamos a estar haciendo un montón de cosas. Va a haber vendedores en la feria. Estos primeros 2 días son 14 o 17 vendedores que deberían aceptar Monero si quieren pagar y comprar cosas con Monero. Pueden hacerlo, es la mejor manera de practicar. Y sábado y domingo va a haber una feria aún mayor con 60, 70 vendedores, así que todos también deberían aceptar Monero y tener todavía más variedad de cosas. Así que no solo les recomendamos que traten de usarlos y mostrarles que es un dinero real que se puede utilizar, sino que aparte, especialmente si son de los que hablan español y ellos tienen inconvenientes, si ustedes ya son usuarios de Monero, que los ayuden a entender cómo funciona. Más allá de eso, en las cosas que vamos a tener actividades, obviamente hay como 40 charlas en inglés o más. A través de los días vamos a tener al menos 5 charlas en español oficiales. Mi charla viene después de la de Roy, es en español. Voy a estar explicando para aquellos que no conocen mucho, básicamente qué Monero es y qué Monero no es. Y mañana, pasado y el domingo vamos a seguir teniendo otras charlas en español. Así que recuerden a aquellos que tengan conocidos y sean de acá de Ciudad de México, que la entrada al predio es gratuita, así que si consiguen gente para el fin de semana que quiera probar y ver qué están haciendo todos estos gringos locos acá con dinero digital, pueden invitarlos. E incluso las charlas que se den acá en el domo, que es la única parte de acceso que es pago, pueden verse desde afuera. Y igual interactuar con los oradores y todo eso. Yo les recomiendo que aprovechen esa oportunidad, incluso para atraer conocidos, porque es una experiencia bastante especial. Aparte de la parte de los vendedores, como dijo Doug, en el fondo, a través del camino, hay varias mesas puestas de los expositores, de los sponsors, con varios proyectos. Aprovechen también para hablar con esas personas, sobre todo si hablan inglés. Son la gente detrás de las herramientas como Monerujo, acá, Cake también, y Trocador, Exolix. Hay varias gente detrás de herramientas que usamos todos los días y van a poder ver a las personas de verdad que están detrás de esas herramientas y hablar con ellos, hacer preguntas y sugerir cambios incluso, porque como bien dijo Doug, MoneroTopia es un trabajo que está en proceso, Monero es un trabajo que está en proceso, así que con suerte seguimos creciendo y cada año sea mejor. Así que sin nada más que decir por ahora, después me van a escuchar como media hora seguida, le doy la bienvenida acá a Roy, que presente Ciudad de México para todos en inglés y después vuelvo yo a hablar en español. Gracias, Andrés.
Well, first of all, I would like to thank everyone that's making the event possible, all of the people in the room as well. My name is Rodrigo. Most people know me as Roy. Among other things, I've been mainly working in the financial field since 2012. I was trading penny stocks back then, and other assets later on, as well as being a currency exchange provider. I started doing the first cryptocurrency exchanges in 2016 until very recently that I've been working on being a business developer for Web3 Telegram bot-based services. I went to what is popularly known as the best university in Mexico to study economics in 2015 after having one of the most, or perhaps the most disappointing experiences in my life by being harassed by Marxist fanatics for being the only Austrian economics and gold standard advocate in the whole faculty. I decided to source my economic formation and education on the internet and as well as real-life experience. It was somewhere around 2012 when I found Bill Steele's documentary, The Money Masters. And at that point, my advocacy to voluntary association and organic development began. I read about Bitcoin in libertarian gold bug spaces when Bitcoin at the moment was 47 pesos, $3 at the time. The dollar was 11 pesos to one. And that event, realizing all of that, turned into two things at this point, which was my first 9-figure fade. I didn't buy Bitcoin. And also, thanks to the mentorship of my good friend Jason Anthony, I also developed a personal fascination towards the notion of the separation of nation and state, with Monero XMR as the best means to achieve such a thing. Today I'm here to welcome you and give you a basic introduction to what seems to me as the most fertile environment for the adoption of sovereign infrastructures, and it's this country, Mexico. Here in Mexico, there is a long story of social injustice, government corruption, and state violence that has led to widespread distrust of formal institutions, fostering a culture where corruption, civil disobedience, and movements for autonomy are common forms of a response and survival towards all of these tyrannical institutions. Several historical events illustrate how the erosion of public trust has shaped Mexico's social and political landscape. Rebellions and resistance have been taking place since the mid-1500s when the Spanish colony was being installed. And an example of that is a war called the Mixton War that the Purépecha natives from my state, Michoacán. This war was just a series of uprisings against authoritarian rulings and resistance against the abuse of the centralized authorities of those days. Closer to the present days, events like the Mexican Revolution, which aimed to establish a more equitable and democratic society after years of conflict, led to continued power struggles and a militarized state led by the Institutional Revolutionary Party, known as PRI, which eventually consolidated power and ruled for 71 years from 1929 to the year 2000. Even though the PRI promised reforms, it became very well known for authoritarianism, heavy corruption, and election fraud. Such incidents deepened public awareness of systemic corruption and mistrust. But perhaps in recent terms, the most insidious event that is still very well embedded in people's memory here in Mexico, especially Mexico City, was the government's brutal massacre of student protests in 1968 here in Mexico City's Tlatelolco Square, event which definitely shocked the nation. Hundreds of protesters advocating for democratic reform were killed or disappeared, and the government engaged in a massive cover-up. This massacre became a symbol of the state's willingness to use extreme violence against its citizens, further eroding any remaining trust in government institutions. The massacre instilled lasting disillusionment, leading to decades of activism and civil disobedience. The government's handling of the massacre, particularly the lack of accountability, taught citizens that the state was more interested in preserving power than in protecting or representing the people. In states like Michoacán and Guerrero, citizens have formed vigilante autodefensa, self-defense groups to protect themselves from cartel violence, essentially filling the void left by the usually ineffective and complicit government. Before the communities of these areas operate towards their sovereignty, which they successfully achieved, they were being the country's biggest victims of extortion, kidnappings, and assassinations from both government officials and cartels. The animosity between families and friends was strong due to political party affiliations, and it wasn't until the communities hit rock bottom that their collective instinct for survival was triggered, and as a result, the fear turned into the rage that set them free. And it's very clear for every Mexican at this point that there is absolutely no shortage of tyrannical events, whether it is in a direct and violent way or in a more subtle and economic, such as market monopolizing deals that are there because of NAFTA, USMCA at this point, I believe. These deals are giving all the advantages to global banking capital, corporate businesses, over local and independent ones. Due to these historical events, Mexicans have developed a culture where under-the-table transactions, distrust of authority, and informal networks of power are commonly accepted survival strategies. Distrust in the legitimacy of the state has also created space for alternative, often autonomous forms of organization triggered by self-defense uprisings against agents of the state and their criminal business partners. Anonymity in the digital sphere is increasingly accessible in Mexico due to a combination of factors involving regulatory gaps, limited government resources for digital oversight, and socioeconomic realities. These create an environment where users can navigate the internet and communicate with fewer barriers to anonymity compared to jurisdictions with stricter digital identity controls. Although Mexico has the National Institute for Transparency, Access to Information, and Personal Data Protection, which oversees privacy regulations, its resources, like many other Mexican government agencies, and their reach are very limited, making comprehensive enforcement deeply challenging and, in most cases, inexistent even. This gap allows users to operate in the digital sphere with minimal intervention. And now what I address as the digital Mexican rebel holy grail, prepaid SIM cards with zero identification requirements. Means like these allows easy access to the internet without strict ID verification. This makes it easy for individuals to acquire mobile phone numbers anonymously. The recent proposal for a mandatory national mobile phone registry with biometric data faced widespread backlash and was ultimately overturned due to concerns about privacy, misuse, and data security. But it's still enforced. There is a system that's called Titan, which is pretty much a database that has everyone's operations, everyone's WhatsApp's messages, and the access towards it is obviously corrupted. It's allegedly just for the use of the Mexican security agency. It's CISEN, and I don't remember the name of its other branch. But it's very well known that a lot of officials are corrupted by cartel or other dirty criminal individuals, institutions, to access such information and enforce extortion or whatever they want to use it for their own means, which normally are not in the benefit of everyone else in Mexico. And now, considering socioeconomic factors and internet access realities, in Mexico, internet access is a very diverse situation. In metropolitan areas like Mexico City, you can find, in most of it, there have been a lot of operations by the main telecommunications provider known as Telmex to cover the country with optic fiber. But yet still at the same time, there are some places in which the landscape just does not allow for infrastructure to happen. And it's just not the landscape. There's also very intense weather, very intense heat waves, followed by intense floodings, rains, hurricanes, and so on, which give place to an infrastructure that's constantly collapsing, and the enforcement of a more regulated access is very difficult. So this provides a gap of opportunity for people to operate freely and anonymously as it is their right. Given historical and ongoing issues with government corruption, violence, and insecurity, many Mexicans are skeptical about state institutions and value privacy highly. This cultural attitude fuels a preference for anonymity and privacy in online activities. Moreover, people are often cautious about sharing personal information as incidents of data breaches, fraud, and abuse of personal information are relatively common. Many digital interactions in Mexico occur within informal networks where people share knowledge about secure and anonymous online practices. This shared knowledge, combined with high levels of social media engagement, helps people adopt tools that ensure anonymity or at least greater privacy. In summary, the Mexican public's awareness of the government's crookedness, illegitimacy, and blood spilling, shaped by centuries of abuse, betrayal, and failure to deliver the order and justice promised, has fostered a culture where civil disobedience, corruption, and autonomy movements are seen not only as necessary, but a fair amount of the times morally justified responses. These historical patterns illustrate that Mexico, autonomy and civil disobedience are often viewed as essential mechanisms of survival and justice in the face of a state that has consistently failed to earn the people's trust. Now, when it comes to living and making business in Mexico, one of the things that I personally like the most is that independent business owners in Mexico is how their networks, it's how in their networks the rejection of authority enforcement is just rejected and criticized by default, and as a result, complex and effective coordination is executed. There is a big network of chat groups that operate as a living organism in which individual reports on events such as corrupt cops approaching or filtering plans of a government crackdown have allowed these businesses, networks, to survive and thrive. The only problem I see is that all of such operations are done in centralized platforms such as WhatsApp, Facebook, and it seems to me that the call of action and business opportunity for specifically people like all of us in the room and the ones hearing this, we can be the bridge that gives place to the next generation of anarchists, civil disobedience, and freedom fighters. In this beautiful and wild land, as a native of such, I'd like to not only encourage you, but I can even say to pressure you to take the opportunity to pioneer the crypto-anarchist infrastructure that will give birth to a stage of development of sovereign social structures characterized by effective, private, and safe means of funding. Thank you. I still have like 3 minutes left in case anyone wants or has a question they would like to make.
What's
Definitely engaging with the people that are taking part of the informal side of the economy, which is half of the economic active population here in Mexico. Half of the people, both men and women, are not registered. They don't have a social security number. They don't have a bank account. Right now, they do have a smartphone, though. Those things are all over the place. So I would say that engaging with them, but specifically the people that have their own personal businesses, some of the most common businesses in Mexico and the ones that are more resilient are, well, just the basic needs: construction, tool providing, they call them ferreterias, tool stores. Those are the businesses that definitely I remember that have lasted the longest, have struggled the least. There's always a big demand for construction. So approaching business owners under that profile and offering perhaps, early participation in a platform in which they can exchange goods and services, fund their the increase of their operations, something like that, I would believe would be a good place to start. Would you like to?
Roy, right?
Yes.
Roy, microphone. You mentioned please come up here. My name is David. Roy, you mentioned the dilemma of WhatsApp and Facebook as main communication used in Mexico extensively. I'm from Mexico City originally, Chilango.
Perfecto.
So Telegram, other Signal, whatever, it's really hard to convince people here that are not using it to use, let's say, Telegram or other platform for that matter. What do you recommend or suggest?
Thank you for bringing that up.
Can I say this in Spanish as well for people that speak Spanish only? Le estoy preguntando a Roy que la gente que usa WhatsApp y Facebook, muchos lo usamos aquí, ¿cómo podemos convencerlos o sugerir o integrar la plataforma de Telegram, por ejemplo, salirse de WhatsApp y de Facebook?
Pues en mi experiencia hay una línea muy corta y muy sencilla que tiene mucho efecto y ha funcionado muy bien, y esa es que, pues, si no quieres ser manipulado, si no quieres ser engañado, si no quieres ser espiado y que tu información se use en contra tuya, si no quieres ser completamente estudiado, pues sí, definitivamente en ese momento la gente ni siquiera le tienes que decir I'm running out of time. Pero es cuando ellos están convencidos en ese momento. Cuando dicen, no, pues yo no quiero que me manipulen ni nada. Entonces lo que yo recomiendo para chat es una aplicación que se llama SimpleX. Cartera SimpleX, así se llama. La cartera es Cake Wallet. Y en teléfono con sistema operativo, Google Pixel, Graphene OS. Y esos son muy fáciles de conseguir aquí, muy baratos.
Hey, I'm sorry for pushing us over another minute here. We had an incident happen last night where one of our buddies got attacked by the cops, we'll say. He was just trying to put some stickers up. The cop pulled him aside and basically extorted him for 1,000 pesos. I was just hoping you could share with everyone here, in case that happens to anybody, what are the practical measures that they should do to sort of protect themselves if they find themselves in that situation? Thanks.
That's a great question. What I found the most effective is that, well, obviously, cops they don't care about law enforcement. They just want to get money out of you, and they're going to try to scare you. They're going to tell you that they're going to take you to the station. But what works the best and the fastest is to deceive them, make them think that you're just a waste of time because you don't have any money. So yeah, I sometimes tell them when that happens to me, take me to the station, or if you want to give me a chance or something. Just let me go. I don't have any money. I'm a student, and just talk long enough for you to be annoying, and make them just want to get rid of you. And recording also is pretty. If you live stream their faces and ask them their name and ask them to identify themselves, that definitely is gonna get them scared and compliant towards you on the other side. Thank you. Oh.
I want to ask sort of a general question of your experience with internet censorship or lack thereof in Mexico, generally both on mobile and on landline.
Well, censorship is something that has been very hardly enforced here in Mexico, specifically because the source of the technologies of information come from other countries. The cases that I've seen that are the most common ones are the ones of journalists that want to expose dirty politicians and their deeds with criminals, but the means of censorship are pretty physical, and they resource to even assassinations at some time. It's not, they don't address such problems through a digital way, in which is the case in other jurisdictions. Pretty much.
There's a new law that they're trying to regulate influencers. What is an influencer? Anybody that makes content. Like even a regular people posting a tweet criticizing the government or something. That's an influencer, and they're trying to pass it out.
Yeah, normally what I've seen is a big effort. More than censorship is that to just tax. They want to tax Uber, they want to tax everyone making money online as well. Influencers specifically, they want to crack them down the most because they're the ones making a lot of money. But definitely those are potential users for these uncensorable and decentralized tools. Anyone has another question? Okay, right on, that'll be that. Thank you very much.
All right, man, great job. Thank you. Fantastic job. All right, we are going to bring Anhdres back up here. He's going to do a Monero 101 in Spanish. Hopefully we do have a few more Monero Spanish speakers straggling in. And then after that, we're going to have Luke Parker, and after that, I will be introducing our host that will be taking over after Anhdres' talk. So if you don't speak Spanish, whatever, do what you got to do. But let's try to get the Spanish speakers in here. We're going to do a Monero 101. If you're with the press, definitely please do stick around. You could actually learn what Monero is all about. Anhdres.
Thank you. But if someone speaks English and wants to stay, it's all right. You can just nod all the time. Or try to guess what the slides are about. Bueno, ahora en español. ¿Somos algunos más ahora o quedamos? ¿Cuántos? Levante la mano los que hablan español. Casi todos. ¿Somos ahora? Bien, perfecto, genial. Esta es la parte más latina de toda la conferencia que vamos a tener hoy, por lo menos en el escenario principal, en público. Y mi objetivo con esta charla es que más o menos les quede claro qué es Monero y qué no es Monero. Después de toda esta conferencia se llama MoneroTopia y no otra cosa. Así que si bien van a estar acá 3-4 días escuchando hablar todo el tiempo de Monero, 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 en mi experiencia como educador y como comunicador lo que más me encontré son un montón de preguntas o concepciones erradas al respecto de qué es Monero. A veces nos vamos mucho en la burbuja que tenemos y pensamos que todo el mundo entiende o de criptomonedas o de algunos conceptos básicos. Así que empecemos de lo más básico a quizás un poco lo más polémico y complicado. Ya que somos pocos, esta charla la hacemos entre todos, no se queden como solamente mirándome. Vamos a probar, a ver, levante la mano los que puedan levantar la mano. Bien, como 80% de participación, genial. No levante la mano aquellos que sepan seguir órdenes. Espectacular, perfecto. Así que vamos a hacerlo de esta manera. Yo voy a poner, después hago una pequeña reflexión sobre por qué hacemos todo esto, pero vamos a empezar por qué es Monero y qué no, o qué chingados es Monero, en la forma más mexicana que pude hacer. Vamos a ver si esto funciona. Y vamos a hacer así. Cuando lo que diga ahí sea cierto, o sí, o verdad, levantan la mano. Tanto como no se cansen, cuando sea falso, no levantan la mano o no. A ver si funciona. Sí, para abajo. Okay. Número 1, Monero es dinero. Sí, perfecto, bien, es verdad. Monero es dinero. si se tienen que llevar algo de la charla de hoy, que sea esto. Básico, simple. Le preguntan a alguien que le gusta Monero, le va a decir que Monero es dinero digital escaso, fungible, privado y descentralizado. Es un poco más complicado, pero cada una de esas cosas tiene una explicación y con suerte para el final de la charla vamos a ver de qué estamos hablando. Monero es nuevo. Tiene como 10, perfecto, 2014. Bien ahí, me gusta esa la de la interacción de que tiran la frase, bien. Es bastante, para los años de criptomonedas es bastante viejito, ya es un mayor de edad. Es de 2014, tiene 10 años y hace 10 años que miles de personas alrededor de todo el mundo lo están usando de manera continua, nunca se cayó, nunca dejó de funcionar. Así que comparado con muchos otros proyectos, salvo Bitcoin, que es como el abuelito de todos acá, es bastante viejo y bastante probado. Ya tiene mayoría de edad, puede manejar y puede comprar alcohol. Monero es una empresa, a lo que muchas veces preguntan. No, Monero no es una empresa. Monero, no hay una fundación Monero que parezca una fundación, pero en realidad es una empresa. No hay un ente centralizado que vende Moneros ni nada así. Monero es un proyecto abierto que mucha gente de distintas partes del mundo colabora, con el cual es más parecido a como si fuera BitTorrent o Linux, algo que es colaborativo y que mucha gente colabora. Fue creado en el 2014 por unas personas, muchas de ellas anónimas, otras personas siguieron desarrollándolo y hoy en día siguen trabajando en ello, en distintas aplicaciones, en el protocolo mismo. Así que Monero no es ninguna empresa, no hay ningún lugar, algún soporte de Monero a quejarse de cómo anda Monero, cosas así. Monero significa moneda. Sí, literalmente significa. Gracias, Francisco. Gracias, Francisco. Es en esperanto. Muy bien.
Monero es moneda en esperanto, pero también es la palabra money en inglés y dinero en español.
Perfecto. Es literalmente dinero en español. ¿Quién conocía esperanto antes de Monero? Ah, bien, 1, 2, bien, bastante nerd eso. Esperanto es un lenguaje que es como el principio del siglo pasado, finales del anterior, y la idea del esperanto era justamente que todos tengamos, es un lenguaje inventado, construido, con varios pedazos de lenguas más que nada europeas. La idea es que sea fácil de aprender y que fuera la segunda idioma para todos, no reemplazar la primera idioma para todos. Que todos sigamos manteniendo nuestros idiomas, nuestras culturas, nuestros países, pero que todos pudiéramos aprender fácilmente un idioma para poder comunicarnos entre todos, hacer una comunidad súper pacífica y evitar la guerra. No funcionó muy bien, pero la idea de Monero es medio lo mismo, ser como una especie de segundo idioma que todos podamos hablar para transaccionar y compartir valor entre nosotros de manera mundial, idealmente para traer más paz al mundo. Monero no es dinero de verdad. Esta es rara, pero te juro que me la dijeron un montón de veces. Bueno, pero no es plata de verdad. Yo diría que sí es plata de verdad. Básicamente, para hacerlo rápido, vos podés ganar Monero, podés enviar Monero, podés recibir Monero, podés ahorrar Monero, podés comprar cosas con Monero. O sea que básicamente funciona como dinero. No hagamos una super discusión teológica sobre qué es dinero y qué no es. Ernesto acá pronto va a dar una charla donde vamos a la historia del dinero y una cosa más así. Pero básicamente mi opinión es que Monero funciona como dinero, entonces por lo tanto es dinero. Diga.
Bueno, cuando he escuchado que alguien dice eso, la 99% de las veces es porque no saben que hay formas de convertirlo a tu moneda nativa. O sea, la mayoría de la gente que critica, por ejemplo, ya no digamos Monero, Bitcoin, es que se me hace dinero, ¿verdad? Y yo decía, pues ok, pero lo puedes convertir a pesos, lo puedes convertir a dólares. Y muchas veces no saben ni siquiera eso.
Claro, tanto como cualquier otra moneda. O sea, funciona como moneda. Por eso yo no entro en esa discusión semántica de decir no dinero, porque en realidad funciona como dinero, es dinero. Para mí todo lo que funciona como dinero es dinero. Y se acabó. Hay billetes de Monero. Hay gente que piensa que hay billetes de Monero, monedas de Monero, físicas. No hay. Se los digo por las dudas. Si alguien les vende una moneda que tiene una M y dicen te estoy vendiendo Monero, no, es un souvenir. No hay así. Monero es digital. Se crea digitalmente, se transmite digitalmente, se guarda digitalmente. Así que no hay representaciones físicas de Monero. ¿Hay centavos de Monero? Sí, hay centavos de Monero. Así como hay centavos de peso, ¿sí? Y no tenemos que pagar todos pesos redondos, todo sale 2, 3, 4, 5 pesos, hay centavos. Hay centavos de Bitcoin, hay como 0,8 lugares para Bitcoin. Para Monero hay 12 lugares de centavos. Es como 0,1 0,00000000000 un Monero puedes mandar. Es una billonésima de centavo. O sea que lo digo porque hay gente que piensa realmente que, no sé, si Monero hoy sale $150, necesitas gastar $150 para comprar un Monero, cuando en realidad puedes comprar fracciones. Y obviamente, si queremos que funcione como dinero, podés pagar cosas que sean menos valiosas que $150.
Oye, ¿tiene nombre la unidad más pequeña del Monero?
Tiene un nombre técnico que nadie usa. Piconero.
No, digo que si...
Piconero, sí.
Que si la unidad más pequeña del Monero tiene un nombre...
Sí, piconero. Por eso digo, nadie lo usa ese nombre, pero es técnicamente correcto, porque como si fuera sistema decimal, entonces es como deci, y pico es como micro algo. Nadie lo usa. Aparte es tan pequeño que no tiene muchas aplicaciones prácticas. Es realmente una billonésima de centavo. Monero es un protocolo. Entonces la primera palabra técnica que estamos usando en la charla hoy. Acá va a estar en desacuerdo el señor, pero a lo que me refiero con protocolo es, no hay que pedir permiso a nadie, es como si fuera un lenguaje, como si hubiéramos hablado esperando. No hay que pedirle a nadie permiso para usar Monero, no hay que sacar una cuenta de Monero en ningún lado, como en un banco. Monero es absolutamente... le da bienvenida a cualquier persona, ¿sí? No discrimina. Simplemente con querer usar Monero y usar las mismas reglas que las otras personas que usan Monero, inmediatamente estamos usando Monero, ¿sí? ¿Cómo se ve esto? Bueno, el protocolo tiene un set de reglas en el cual, como si fuera un idioma, si hablamos la misma gramática y usamos el mismo vocabulario, más o menos los entendemos entre nosotros. Si usamos para aplicaciones de Monero, wallets, apps en el teléfono, en la computadora, que sigan las reglas de Monero, van a poder interactuar entre sí, es un estándar y todo funciona así. Se pueden mandar, enviar Moneros, guardar Moneros y es siempre Monero. Monero es un Ponzi. Uno dijo que sí. A él, muchachos. No, yo digo que no, Monero no es un Ponzi, viejo, me la banco. No, no es un Ponzi, ¿sí? Por Ponzi entendemos la famosa pirámide donde los que entran primero van comprando, por ejemplo, un token que después les da regalías o les da intereses o les da un tipo de rendimiento y ese rendimiento sale de las personas que entran después y aportan más capital. No, Monero no funciona así, es una moneda. Por lo cual tener Moneros no te da ningún tipo de rendimiento, no te da interés, no ganas nada. Es como guardar moneda de oro en tu casa, ¿sí? Idealmente no pierde valor, pero no te va a dar ningún rendimiento. Y para aquellas personas que usan Ponzi de la manera más o menos floja, de decir, bueno, cualquier cosa que después se vende por más plata de la que te costó, el mundo es un Ponzi entonces, básicamente. Si yo hubiera tenido la oportunidad de comprar 1000 metros cuadrados en Roma hace 100 años, hoy lo vendería por mucho más, simplemente porque los metros cuadrados en Roma son escasos, ¿sí? Entonces, Monero es escaso, lo vamos a ver después, pero básicamente sí, hay gente que tiene más Moneros que otra, hay gente que lo tiene hace más tiempo que otra, pero no es un Ponzi. No depende de nuevo capital que entre para que funcione. Alguien tiene todos los Moneros. Esta no se me había ni ocurrido, me lo dijo una persona. Pero ¿quién tiene todos los Moneros? No hay un dios de Monero que creó los Moneros todos de una y los tiene todos él y los va vendiendo a los tontos que vienen después, ¿sí? Los Moneros se van creando a medida, se fueron creando desde que empezó y se siguen creando. Siempre va a haber Moneros nuevos para gente que entra, no hace falta que se lo compren a alguien que ya los tiene. Hay 18 millones de Moneros, más o menos, hoy en día, y se siguen emitiendo a un ritmo de 0,6 Moneros cada 2 minutos, si les gustan los números. Monero, esta le pasa mucho a cualquier cripto, no está respaldada por nada. ¿Quién está de acuerdo con esta frase? Bien. No, no está respaldada por nada. Suena feo, pero no está respaldada por nada. Yo creo que nada está respaldado por nada. Si no el oro, ¿por qué está respaldado? Por oro. El oro funciona porque hace, como bien lo va a contar Ernesto después, está hace miles de años, se sigue aceptando, está súper probado, se puede derretir, se puede partir, se puede multiplicar, es útil. Bueno, Monero trata de hacer todo eso y encima digital y transferible por internet, ¿sí? Pero está respaldado por nada, salvo la utilidad que tiene para otras personas, el valor que otras personas piensan que esa cosa tiene. De ahí viene su valor. Monero es como Bitcoin. Esta tiene trampa. Tiene re trampa. No, no es como Bitcoin, ¿sí? Es muy parecida a Bitcoin, sobre todo al principio. Tiene muchas cosas en común. Es una criptomoneda para empezar. ¿Sí? Es escasa también, se mina también. Ahí más o menos terminan las similitudes. Desgraciadamente en el precio también son diferentes. ¿Ok? Pero hay una cosa en particular para hacer la charla un poco más rápida, que es la característica que más van a escuchar hablar sobre Monero, que es privada. Bitcoin por definición es transparente. Monero por definición es privada. Y esa es la mayor diferencia que tiene entre las dos. Si ven acá, Francisco, por ejemplo, hay un montón más diferencias entre ambas, más allá de la privacidad. Entonces, esta es fácil. Monero es privada. Sí, perfectamente. Para aquellos que no lo saben, Monero usa varias características de criptografía, ¿sí? Herramientas distintas que unidas una con la otra hacen que las transacciones sean privadas por defecto. Esconde las partes más obvias de una transacción. Esconde la persona que está enviando moneros, esconde cuántos moneros está enviando y también esconde quién los está recibiendo. Aparte de un poco también esconde en qué momento los estás mandando y desde dónde. Sí, pero básicamente estas tres. Lo que consigue de esta manera es que le da bastante libertad financiera a los individuos que la usan. Ver la cadena, ver las transacciones de Monero es bastante opaca y no se puede ver. ¿Hay moneros que valen más que otros moneros? No. Si se quedan 3 días más, van a escuchar una palabra un montón de veces, que es fungibilidad. Palabra que nunca se usó antes en la historia del mundo, hasta que las criptomonedas, básicamente, o en algunos papers de economistas. ¿A qué se refiere esto? A que, por ejemplo, los billetes de pesos mexicanos. Un billete de 100 pesos vale siempre 100 pesos. ¿Sí? Yo voy con un billete de 100 pesos y el comerciante que me vende algo por 100 pesos tiene que aceptarlo como que vale 100 pesos. Esto es así porque fiat, porque el gobierno pone una ley que dice que todos los billetes de 100 pesos valen 100 pesos. Entonces eso quiere decir que todos los billetes de 100 pesos son intercambiables entre sí. No hay mucha diferencia con qué billete pago yo, tiene que valer 100 pesos. Esto es posible porque los billetes no recuerdan quién lo tuvo antes. ¿Sí? No tienen memoria de sus anteriores dueños. Si en vez de billetes usamos transferencias bancarias, las transferencias bancarias sí vienen de un lado. Una transferencia bancaria fue iniciada por alguien que le llegó la plata del banco a otro lado, que le llevó la plata a otro lado del banco, y si el origen de esa transferencia es dudosa por cualquier motivo, o es polémica por cualquier motivo, los que siguen abajo de la cadena ven su transferencia o regulada o cancelada, o por lo menos en las monedas como, por ejemplo, Bitcoin, que tienen una historia, empiezan a tener precios, valores distintos, porque hay unas monedas más limpias que otras, o más seguras de gastar de vuelta que otras. Como Monero es como efectivo digital, no recuerda lo que tiene detrás, cada transacción es nueva, entonces cada Monero es indistinguible del otro, por eso se dice que es fungible. Podemos usar Monero con tranquilidad, de que no vamos a tener problema con de dónde vienen nuestros fondos. Monero es difícil de usar. Él está de acuerdo y hace una de las billeteras para Monero. Es su culpa. Sí. No es difícil de usar. Era mucho más difícil de usar antes, hace un par de años. Básicamente, por ejemplo, no había billeteras móviles. Ahora tenemos 3 o 4. ¿Sí? Hay billeteras para escritorio. La usabilidad mejoró muchísimo. Así que yo me atrevería a decir que no es difícil de usar. Tiene sus temitas, pero para aquellos que piensen esto, piensen que más o menos estamos en la infancia de las criptomonedas, aunque para uno de nosotros parezca como que pasaron años, pero estamos en la infancia. Acuérdense de cómo era una persona usando internet en los 90, que era básicamente un hacker con capucha, con una computadora, con un monitor grande como una heladera de hotel más o menos, con un modem haciendo es súper lento, y ahora decís internet significa tu abuela usando TikTok en la cocina, con un dispositivo más chiquito que su libreta de casamiento. ¿Sí? Entonces, allá vamos con Monero y allá vamos con las criptomonedas en general. Monero es difícil de comprar. Sí, más manos arriba, es difícil de comprar. Es incómodo de comprar. Úsenlo como señal de que es algo que vale la pena comprar. No es consejo financiero. Pero básicamente lo que fueron haciendo los gobiernos y las regulaciones es hacerlo incómodo. Al principio había muchas más empresas que vendían moneros por plata normal. Fueron cerrando distintas jurisdicciones, fueron sacándolo. Quedan todavía Kraken, queda todavía Cake Wallet, creo que pueden comprar Monero directamente con tarjeta de crédito y cosas así. Pero hoy en día la forma más rápida, para hacerlo rápido, de comprar Monero es básicamente comprar cualquier otra criptomoneda, que es fácil de comprar en todos lados, y cambiarla después por Monero en decenas de servicios que no piden identificación y te cambian cualquier cripto a Monero y Monero a cualquier cripto. Es un paso más que nos obligan a hacer. La manera ideal, súper criptoanarquista, sería se la compramos a otra persona, persona a persona. P2P, como se dice en la jerga. Es difícil de encontrar. Monero es ilegal. Más o menos. Hay 4 o 5 países que dijeron que Monero es ilegal, que en realidad no es personal. Algunas monedas de privacidad son monedas con características de privacidad son ilegales, como Corea del Sur, Japón, creo, y 2 o 3 más. Irán, creo. ¿No? Ni siquiera.
No, es que es legal, pero es muy difícil de comprar.
Bien, mejor todavía. Acá en que sabe verdaderamente dice que no es ilegal. Y yo voy a hacer... Sí, sí, sí. Entonces, la respuesta más corta sería no, no es ilegal. Y como dije antes, a veces es más difícil o menos difícil de comprar, y las regulaciones de cada país están a hacerlo un poco más incómodo, pero no estamos haciendo nada ilegal. Es más, generalmente no quieren ni regularlo, sería como regular efectivo. Y realmente, en mi opinión personal, no quieren regularlo activamente porque sería una especie de efecto de Streisand de decir, gente, no usen esto porque es ilegal y es súper peligroso. Y lo primero que va a hacer la gente es decir, ¿qué cosa? ¿De qué estás hablando, Monero? ¿Qué? Ahora me interesa. ¿Sí? La guerra contra las drogas no funcionó muy bien tampoco. Monero resistente a la censura. Sí. Son cada vez más polémicas, pero más fáciles. Sí, es la censura. De 2 maneras, básicamente. A nivel general, como protocolo, la lista de todas nuestras acciones de Monero está distribuida en miles de computadoras alrededor del mundo. ¿Sí? Aún si pudieras atacar 1, 2, 3, 14 de esas copias, quedan otras miles. ¿Sí? Así que censurar la red, hacer imposible que una transacción se haga, es prácticamente imposible. ¿Sí? Y después censurar en lo particular a una persona, a un usuario de Monero, también es muy difícil, porque justamente al ser privada y al ser centralizada, el usuario típico de Monero no está gritándole al mundo, estoy usando Monero, está bastante protegido, así que puede operar con relativa tranquilidad. Especialmente en casos de activistas o gente que realmente necesita poder recibir donaciones o poder enviar pagos en Monero, lo protege mucho. Monero se puede minar, sí, así como dije que no están los... Bien, sí. Así como dije que no están el dios de los moneros que ya tiene todos creados, sí. La manera en que los nuevos moneros vienen al mundo, ¿sí?, nacen es a través de minería. Igual que pasa con Bitcoin, por ejemplo. ¿Sí? Se mina de manera distinta, pero es el mismo sistema. Hay computadoras alrededor del mundo. Ustedes pueden correr cualquiera. Esta es una computadora normal. Te buscas un programa que mina Monero, que lo que hace es básicamente tratar de adivinar un número muy difícil. Esta es la explicación súper breve. Un número muy difícil de una lotería que hay una ronda cada 2 minutos en promedio. La computadora que se la pasa procesando y pensando rápido y haciendo tipo, este número, este número, este número, este número. No. Cuando le pega, 0,6 moneros para vos. Así como funciona la cosa y esos moneros aparecen en el mercado. ¿Ok? Obviamente, cuantas más computadoras tenés o cuanto más rápido piensa la computadora que tenés, más chances tenés estadísticamente. Pero incluso puedes tener mucha suerte y tener una computadora bastante mala, por así decirlo, y ganar vos los moneros. Esa es la manera en que los moneros vienen al mundo y el monero, obviamente el minero que mina Monero puede elegir quedárselos y ahorrarlos o pueden venderlos. Y cuando los vende, otra persona los compra y entran al mercado y de esa manera la gente que no quiere minar obtiene sus primeros moneros. Una transacción de Monero se puede revertir. Esto es importante sobre todo para la gente que está acá de vendedores. No se puede revertir. Es lo mismo que estamos diciendo que es cash. Cuando nosotros usamos un billete y se lo doy a una persona, hay un momento que el billete está en mi mano y un momento que el billete está en la mano del otro. No hay un limbo extraño de billetes donde está flotando en el aire y no está en ninguno de los dos lados. ¿Sí? Dependemos de la buena fe. Si nos equivocamos en una transacción, por ejemplo, o alguien compra por un monto equivocado, dependemos de la buena voluntad de la otra parte de devolverlo y mandarlo de vuelta. ¿Sí? Una vez que se hace, no se puede volver para atrás. No es como una tarjeta de crédito, que queda una especie de limbo en el cual se puede reclamar el pago o algo así. En el momento que se hace, no se va para atrás. Va a haber infinitos moneros. Sí. Esta es la parte fea. Sí, va a haber infinitos moneros. Amantes de la inflación, vengan a mí. Sí, técnicamente va a haber infinitos moneros, ¿ok? Tiene todo un sentido y vamos a pasar bastante rápido por esto. Pero esto no quiere decir que no sea escaso. Ahora voy a hablar también de eso. ¿Por qué infinitos moneros? Porque esto que les dije que a los mineros se les da 0,6 moneros cada 2 minutos, bueno, Hay infinitos moneros también para poder asegurar de que los moneros tengan un incentivo para seguir trabajando y manteniendo la red. Acuérdense que no hay una empresa monero que mantiene la red, no hay un Facebook que mantiene el sistema. Entonces, las comisiones que usamos mantienen el sistema, hay infinitos moneros, sin embargo, como es un monto fijo, esos 0,6, y no es un porcentaje, es 1% anual o lo que sea, la inflación en Monero hoy en día es menos del 1% anual. Y cada vez que pasan 2 minutos, si hay 0,6 más, es un porcentaje más chiquito de esa torta, con lo cual es 0,8 creo, 0,8 y pico, y bajando cada año, hasta que se aproxime a 0. Nunca va a llegar a 0, porque antes que eso el sol va a explotar y nos vamos a morir todos, pero va a ir cada vez más pequeña, más pequeña, más pequeña. Y relacionado con esta, Monero es escaso. Sí, es súper escaso, súper escaso. Hay 18 millones, 0,6 cada 2 minutos, son creo que es como 160.000 por año que se emiten. Esos 160.000 por año no van a cambiar y es un pedazo cada vez más chiquito de la torta de los grandes moneros que hay. La población es de 8 billones de personas y creciendo al 1 o 2% anual. La cantidad de moneros es 1% y bajando cada año. ¿Sí? O sea, cada vez hay menos moneros para cada una de las personas. Creo que la cuenta era que si lo dividías los que había hoy en 8 billones era como 0,00025 moneros, como si fueran 5 centavos de monero por persona. Claramente, si se va a empezar a usar como dinero, no es un valor que represente su utilidad. Los moneros se guardan en las aplicaciones. Esta es muy confusa. Mucha gente piensa, la mayoría de los usuarios nuevos piensan que es así. Solo digo por si alguien que va a usar Monero realmente MoneroTopia y debería usar Monero MoneroTopia acá. Los moneros no se guardan en tu teléfono. La gente piensa que recibe moneros y se guardan en el teléfono o se guardan en la aplicación. No es así. Es medio raro, pero las aplicaciones de moneros son como si fueran llaveros con claves, ¿sí? Esa lista que dije que se repartía en miles de lugares en el mundo es siempre la misma lista y tiene las transacciones, quién tiene todos los moneros que existen y a quién pertenecen. Lo que hace cada una de las aplicaciones de Monero, en la compu, en el celular, en todos lados, es mandar permisos de revisan la lista, ¿qué me pertenece a mí? Muestro mi clave privada, ¿qué me pertenece a mí? Yo le voy a mandar moneros a él, lo que hago es agarrar y mandar una transacción que dice, anoten en la lista que estos moneros que eran míos ahora son de él, y él con su llave ve que le aparecen. Pero nunca se mueven los moneros de un lugar al otro. Por eso que podemos tener la misma billetera o la misma cuenta de Monero en 5 teléfonos distintos. Esa lista que tiene todos los moneros de quién son de cada uno, ¿se puede cambiar? No, no se puede cambiar. Quédense tranquilos. Es muy difícil de cambiarla. ¿Sí? Como digo, está distribuido en todos lados y cada vez que se anotan transacciones nuevas, se van linkeando con las transacciones anteriores. Así que cuantas más transacciones pasan, más difícil es cambiarlas para atrás. Si ustedes vendieron algo por Monero, si tienen una de estas tiendas o algo así, quédense tranquilos. En el momento que reciben y aparecen los moneros ahí, vendieron un café, un taco, lo que sea, está bien. Está, no se va a revertir. Si quieren vender una casa por moneros, esperen 20 minutos y se quedan más que tranquilos. Se pagan comisiones cada vez que se mandan moneros. Sí se pagan comisiones. Suena feo, pero son muy pequeñas. Muy pequeñas. Y no están asociadas a la cantidad de moneros que se transmiten. No es que es un porcentaje de lo que se transmite. Vos podés mandar un monero y podés mandar 100 moneros o 1000 moneros y pagás la misma comisión. Y la comisión es como el 0,00034 o algo así. ¿Sí? Son micronésimas de centavo. Es muy barato transaccionar Monero. Y es la idea, si vamos a tratar de ser efectivo, que la gente use de verdad. ¿Sí? ¿Por qué se pagan esas comisiones? Porque esas comisiones van a los mineros que mantienen el sistema funcionando, sin tener nada centralizado que lo mantenga. Comparando para los vendedores de la sala, tipo tarjeta de crédito, 2 o 3% de comisión. Nada, es una fracción de centavo de eso. Pagar con Monero es instantáneo. Más o menos. Es muy rápido, sí. Acá en su experiencia va a depender más que nada de qué tan rápido la conexión a internet de su teléfono y la conexión a internet del otro teléfono para ver la transacción que aparece. Deberían aparecer en segundos. ¿Sí? Sí, Monero es usado por criminales, por supuesto que sí. ¿Están grabando esto? Sí, está usado por un montón de criminales. No son tontos los criminales. Hay cosas que aprender de los criminales. Hay gente que está poniendo su vida y su libertad en juego. Así que vean las herramientas que usan. Pero también mi defensa sería, también usan autos y celulares y camas y salsa tabasco, por ejemplo. Vamos a prohibir todo eso porque usan los criminales. O sea que ese argumento es un poco estúpido para mí. Y si queremos que la policía haga su trabajo, la policía lo que debería hacer...
Pero verías como qué fraudes, todo eso, qué monedas usan. Porque el Monero ni siquiera aparecía.
Por supuesto que ni aparece.
¿Cómo verías como el 0.5%?
Las criptomonedas no son lo que más se usa hoy en día para ilícitos, para nada. Para empezar, no son lo que más se usa en punto. Es un nicho totalmente pequeño. Si Bitcoin es un nicho, Monero es el nicho del nicho. Pero bueno, siéntense todos muy cool porque es como escuchar una banda cuando todavía no es popular, qué sé yo. Pueden decir, yo fui a MoneroTopia en el 2024. Ah, grosos. Pero sí, no, se usa moneda, plata, se usa cash para hacer ilícitos. Ah, esto no lo dije. Monero facilita el lavado de dinero. Más o menos. Sí, tanto como el cash. No está inventando nada nuevo Monero en ese sentido. El lavado de dinero se combate por el registro de las operaciones de las empresas, de los particulares. De si golpe una persona se compra una casa de la nada y no tiene forma de cumplir sus ingresos. Tener una moneda que lo hace más opaco o más transparente no cambia el hecho, en realidad. Entonces, en conclusión, ¿es bueno que exista Monero? Es así, estamos casi todos de acuerdo. Bien. Me preocupa un poco que hay algunas manos que no se hayan levantado, con lo cual no sé si es que o no, ya está, ya los perdí, o dicen, todavía no estoy seguro. Es que estás hablando muy rápido, pero sí, estoy de acuerdo. Es porque hay tiempo, y vienen otros hablando después. Sí, es bueno que exista Monero. Fácil. Yo creo que la privacidad es importante. Yo creo que Monero es una excelente herramienta, o puede ser una excelente herramienta, para no solo asegurar ciertas libertades individuales, no solo ayudar a personas que están en una situación que a lo mejor, por la ubicación en la que se encuentran, el lugar donde nacieron, o lo que están tratando de combatir, ven peligrar su vida o ver peligrar su libertad y necesitan que otras personas puedan aportarle fondos para sus causas. Para mí eso es muy importante, pero más lo macro y lo más difuso, creo que estaría bueno que todos usáramos más una moneda que tenga estas características. Creo que el mundo sería un lugar un poquito mejor. Por esto, porque por todo lo que vengo diciendo, necesitamos que el dinero sea digital, escaso y privado. Como base, como base. ¿Sí? Digital ya fue fácil, para que pase lo mismo que pasó con Internet. Si aún no se acuerda cómo eran las cosas antes de Internet, eran bastante peores, más allá de las redes sociales que son bastante malas. Provocó que la economía, empezamos a hablar con gente de todas partes del mundo por 2 centavos, por nada. Las llamadas de larga distancia, ¿alguien se acuerda de llamadas de larga distancia? Existe eso, y eso que todos creíamos, el conocimiento se expandió un montón, lo mismo puede pasar con las transacciones financieras con nuestro dinero, ¿sí? Si es digital. Escaso es lo que vino a hacer Bitcoin. Después del 2008 los gobiernos decidieron que bueno, metimos la pata, vamos a imprimir un montón de plata para solucionarlo. Y Bitcoin fue la respuesta de decir, vamos a hacerlo oro digital escaso. Y miren el éxito que tuvo, o que viene teniendo, yo lo considero un éxito, qué sé yo. ¿Sí? Viene a solucionar eso. Pero para mí le falta la tercera pata, que es la privacidad. Para mí, si la moneda no tiene características de privacidad, no se van a poder usar las otras dos si la cosa se pone medio jodida. Así como Bitcoin fue la respuesta a la crisis del 2008, por la forma en que van las cosas, yo creo que los gobiernos se van a poner cada vez más totalitarios y las libertades individuales van a ir restringidas cada vez un poquito más. Cuando las cosas se pongan feas, la solución va a ser restringirlas un poquito más. Y Monero puede ser una buena herramienta para contrarrestar esa tendencia. Que tengan que pedir un poco más permiso y un poco menos perdón. ¿Sí? Entonces, en conclusión, Monero va a ser un éxito. Bien, ¿les tienen fe? Yo no sé. Yo respondería no sé, nadie sabe el futuro. Pero por lo que digo, ¿sí? Quizás está un poquito adelante de su tiempo. Es una herramienta que está pensada y que mucha gente está tratando de desarrollar herramientas para ella, para una situación que quizás no es la que hoy estamos enfrentando. Quizás hoy no hace falta. Quizá hoy no estamos tan perseguidos, quizá hoy el control no es tan potente, pero estamos juntando perdón por la argentinidad, un montón de datos todo el tiempo. No solo con estas interacciones en redes, en lo que sea, sino también con todas estas transacciones financieras. Cuando nosotros pagamos algo, compramos algo, estamos diciéndole al mundo, esto nos gusta, esto me sirve, esto lo necesito y a este precio. Todo el tiempo, si usamos monedas que son rastreables todo el tiempo, estamos juntando un montón de cantidad de datos que ojalá que no, pero que en un futuro puede ser usado en nuestra contra, con mucha facilidad. Así que no sé si va a ser un éxito. Casi como que espero que no haga falta Monero. Pero si hace falta, ojalá que esté ahí. Así que bueno, ¿qué chingados es Monero? Efectivo digital. Sería la respuesta corta. La respuesta larga, yo creo que para la mayoría de las personas que estamos haciendo esta conferencia, es como la esperanza de poder ayudar a que una herramienta se conozca más, que haga que el mundo sea un toquecito, un poquito mejor en el futuro. Eso es todo. Gracias por quedarse. No sé si ni siquiera tenemos tiempo de preguntas o no. You have time for answers or questions or whatever? Ok. Si alguien tiene una pregunta la puede hacer, si no igual voy a estar acá afuera, ahí vamos, pero voy a estar acá afuera y después les recuerdo a todos que igual vamos a tener como workshops en español para los que quieran, aparte de toda esta sarta de estupideces que dije, aprender a usarlo de verdad en modo práctico, ¿sí? El tamaño máximo de un bloque de Monero. Francisco.
Eso es una muy importante diferencia con Bitcoin. No hay un máximo tamaño de bloque de Monero. Y por eso es la razón que las comisiones son tan bajas. Y se espera que cuando crezca el bloque de Monero, la comisión sea más baja. Porque se adapta. Muy diferente que Bitcoin.
Te pasé con el especialista porque es lo que básicamente él hace, ¿sí? Era como, es el dios de los bloques dinámicos. Pero la respuesta corta sería, van cambiando cuanto más se usa. Si Monero tiene más demanda, el bloque se agranda. Si Monero tiene menos demanda, el bloque se achica. Para que no haya ni espacio vacío, ni que queden transacciones pendientes, ¿sí? Y de esa manera no hace falta cambiar, como pasa en muchas otras monedas, como dijo él, no hace falta cambiar el precio de las transacciones. Porque siempre se mantiene más o menos. Es un promedio igual de las últimas tantas transacciones para que no sea brusco, pero se va adaptando al uso que tiene.
Pregunta. Por ejemplo, si uno echa a andar un nodo local, tienes que bajar la blockchain, son 180 gigas más o menos, no sé. Me topé con que si uno cierra mal, por ejemplo, el Monerot, o sea, el CLI de... Si no lo cierras bien, si no le pones así control C y que se cierre así, se corrompe la base de datos. ¿Hay algún comando o hay alguna configuración, algún, no sé cómo se llama, prompt, así como algún parámetro que puedas correr como para evitar eso? Para que no tengas otra vez que volver a descargar todo.
No que yo sepa específicamente para eso, pero no debería pasar lo que te pasa. Es la respuesta técnica obvia, ¿no? No debería pasar, pero te pasa. Cuando vos lo cerrás, naturalmente debería guardar el estado en el que estás sincronizándolo y cuando lo ves la próxima vez lo tenés que estar de vuelta.
¿Se va la luz? ¿No alcanza a cerrarse
Sí.
la base de datos?
No, te entiendo. Es como que se corrompe, pero no debe... Claro, si lo cerrás naturalmente no es que hay un comando especial. Si se corta la luz se puede cortar la luz, pero si lo cerrás naturalmente no debería pasarte eso y debería resumir del momento en el que estaba. ¿Una más? Vos. ¿Querés un micrófono para que te escuchen? O agarrate este.
Ayer estábamos platicando de cómo hacer que la gente adopte Monero y un problema que no supimos cómo explicar es cuando tú haces una transacción, tu dinero se congela por un tiempo y cómo hacerles entender a las personas que pues ese dinero no está perdido o que va a estar libre en un momento.
Alguien le iba a preguntar. Mira, es una de las cosas más feitas que tiene Monero todavía. Tiene una explicación técnica de por qué es así. Pero básicamente para asegurar que nadie esté gastando dinero que no es seguro de él, hay un periodo de enfriamiento de 10 bloques, o sea, más o menos 20 minutos, desde que vos recibís un monto y lo puedes gastar de vuelta, ¿sí? Yo creo que en el futuro eso va a ir cambiando y se va a ir reduciendo, idealmente. Hoy en día no hay una super explicación sencilla para que la gente lo entienda, es como que tenés que aceptar que es así. Sin embargo, hay tecnologías como la que desarrolló el señor acá, presente, en Monerujo, que lo que te dejan hacer es que cuando vos tenés montos ya en tu billetera, a medida que los usás, literalmente como si fueran billetes, si tuvieras un billete de 1000 y casi nadie te lo acepta, o algo así, o de 10.000, lo que sea, a medida que vos vas transaccionando, va creando cambio extra. Si no, Monero por defecto trata de ser eficiente y crearte el billete más grande posible, ¿sí? En Monerujo, si vos activás ese modo, que es algo que nosotros hemos activado, por ejemplo, para situaciones como esta, donde gastás seguido, cada vez que envías, te crea un montón de monedas chiquitas. Entonces, cuando vos envías, solamente usas las monedas que necesitas y las otras no están trabadas. Entonces, siempre tenés como fondos disponibles y no te das cuenta de ese monto. Si usas Monero de manera regular, en una billetera normal, sí. Pasa eso que se te traba 20 minutos. Desgraciadamente, todavía en la vida cotidiana no estamos usando Monero todo el tiempo y casi no se nota. Pero sí es una cosa que en el futuro tendría que cambiar, ¿sí? Si no, es muy, muy engorroso. ¿Listo? Perfecto. Bueno, gracias a todos. Cualquier cosa que estaba por acá dando vueltas.
Gracias, AJ. De nada. All right, let's give it up for Anhdres. We had some Spanish, we had some locals in here, I feel like, right? It was somewhat of a packed house. All right, so next we're bringing up the speaker. Actually, we've kind of all been waiting for him. He's coming up soon. We were going to try to hold him off to the end of the conference, but we have him for a limited amount of time, I think. And we definitely did not want to miss out on Luke Parker. Luke Parker is a dev in the Monero community. He is working on improving a lot of things in Monero, but he's first and foremost working on full chain membership proofs. Luke, I'm sure we'll get into it in great detail, but kind of like the really super high level overview is full chain membership proofs solves an issue Monero has with its ring signature component. So there's basically three basic components to Monero that allow it to be private. That's its confidential transactions, which obfuscates its amounts. There's the stealth addresses, which obfuscates who the true receiver is. And then there's ring signatures, which obfuscates who the sender is. So you never know who the true signer is of a Monero transaction. But the shortcoming there is it's done in a probabilistic way. It's not perfect encryption. Ring signatures really was kind of a workaround in the early days, and there's always been this thought of deprecating them and replacing them with something. And that's where Luke Parker comes in. Luke Parker figured out how to basically get rid of ring signatures and upgrade so that Monero at that point really would not have any known privacy flaws or privacy attack vectors. But before I bring Luke up, I'm going to bring up the man who's going to be basically running the show for the next 4 days with the help of me and Gionic. We invited him to come be the host at MoneroTopia because we thought he fit in perfectly. So he started off as a BTC maxi, I think it's fair to say. I'm sure Vlad will get into it a little bit more. But really, at the end of the day, he's one of us. He's interested in the tech. He's looking for crypto that actually works for peer-to-peer purposes, where people can send untraceable digital cash to each other. I think he's one of these guys that has the realization that maybe Bitcoin isn't the best tool for that purpose. He's recently become, I think, a little bit more popular with his interview of Roger Ver, which blew up on Twitter. He's the host of what is it? It's the Bitcoin
the Bitcoin Takeover podcast. It's actually very popular, especially the recent Roger Ver episode blew up. But he's been around for a long time. Actually, one of my favorite interviews that he ever did was of a Monero guy. Maybe you guys have heard of him, Fluffy Pony. There's an old podcast of Vlad talking to Fluffy Pony, I think in like 2015, 2016, 20, all right, it's not as old as I thought. I thought you were a Moro OG. Maybe not, maybe not. But let me bring Vlad up. He'll quickly introduce himself, and then we'll get Luke up here. Vlad, come on up.
Hi there. Chuck. I have to speak closer to the microphone, I guess. Hi, I'm Vlad. I do the Bitcoin Takeover podcast. I suffer from somewhat of an imposter syndrome right now because I come from the Bitcoin space. I still consider myself a Bitcoin maximalist, but by the same metrics, all of you are Bitcoin maximalists because you're researching privacy technology that can bring us one step forward towards having the perfect money. So Bitcoin either becomes the money or we're going to have lots of different currencies that are going to fulfill the purpose that Bitcoin does not. And I think Monero fits in very nicely. I don't want to talk about myself too much. I'm actually excited that I get to introduce Luke Parker. And if you're gonna see me around here, ask me about the magazines because I created something special for this event. There's something which has articles about Monero, articles about privacy philosophically, privacy technically, how to set up BTC Pay with Monero. There's also an article about that. If you're interested in practical stuff, hacky stuff, I think there's something for everyone, and I'm proud of this work. It's, I guess, the contribution of 20-something authors who have written articles. In total, there are 154 pages. I was able to print it here locally in Mexico City, and I hope tomorrow I'm gonna have it. But Luke Parker is a legend. He broke Darrow earlier this year. I'm not sure who remembers that. He proved to these guys that they're imposters and they're not really building something that is worthy of the marketing. And that's something that we need more of. People who prove that the marketing of a coin is not what it says it really is. And we need this cypherpunk spirit with people breaking stuff all the time. I hope you don't break Monero. Also, for the questions for him, please step up to the microphone here. That's a general rule. And if you want to have extra privacy, you want to be part of this anonymity set, wear your hat, so that it's going to be hard to distinguish which member of the audience you are.
Hello, everyone. As already prior introduced, I am Luke Parker, and this talk is initially on full chain membership proofs plus. At the end of it, I will talk briefly on my work on Serai, a decentralized exchange, but for now, it's the full chain member proofs plus segment. On mine, I go by Kayaba or Kayaba Nerve. You may know me by one of those two names. And I'm also a committee member for the Magic Monero Fund. The Magic Monero Fund, or Magic specifically, is an American 501c3 charity. So if people subject to American taxes want to donate to Monero development, they can donate to the Magic Monero Fund, and that is tax deductible. I just always like to shout them out in my talks. So just to get started with what full chain membership proofs plus even is in the first place. It's going to be the next privacy protocol for Monero. Last time I talked about it was at MoneroCon in Europe earlier this year, and at that time it was a lot more up in the air. But at this point, no, I'm very confident in saying this is what we're moving forward with. Notably, it doesn't require any migration. All current addresses which have been generated in the past and are in use today will remain usable into the future. So this should look exactly the same to users. It adds complete sender privacy, replacing our existing ring signatures, and that removes a lot of the statistical analysis possible. These statistical analyses have been described as, EAE, EABE, Overseer, Tainted Dust. There's a lot of different names for different attacks possible, and I'm not going to get into this in the full depth or every single one. But what I do want to say is basically, in Monero today, you have a ring signature, and it says, hi, I'm spending an output, and I'm only spending one of these 16 outputs. Within those 16, the zero knowledge proof we use is perfect. It does not give any information on which of those 16 is spent. The issue is if you have a horrible, what's known as a decoy selection algorithm. You have your output you're actually spending and 15 random decoys. If you have a horrible decoy selection algorithm, you may say, oh, well, I have one output that it could be from a month ago and 15 from 10 years ago. Most people aren't spending outputs from 10 years ago. Most people are only spending outputs from a month ago. So you could pretty quickly guess, oh, the actual output being spent here is the one from a month ago because all the others are very old and very unlikely to be spent. And that's kind of the possible statistical analysis. Obviously, it gets much more complicated and much more in depth, but that's a very trivial example. So the obvious solution would just be to have the ring signature include every output on the blockchain. And that's what full chain membership proofs do. They include every single output on the blockchain. So all you know is it is a Monero output being spent, not one of 16 Monero outputs being spent. It also enables outgoing view keys. Monero has view keys right now. You don't need your private spend key to scan outputs. You can use a mobile phone that you don't love the security of just to scan your wallet and get the most up-to-date information, and then use a hardware wallet to actually spend your coins when the time comes. As of right now, view keys only allow you to find received outputs and don't let you to detect if they've been spent. So that lets you calculate the amount you've received, but not your wallet's current balance. This will enable addresses created in the future to have what are known as outgoing view keys, which let you find when the outputs you have were spent on the blockchain. And then it also enables making Monero's transaction graph forward secret for newly created outputs. As of right now, a quantum computer, which you may think is never going to happen, may think is going to happen in 100 years, maybe in 40 years, maybe in 5 years. Whenever a quantum computer occurs, as of right now, they will be able to trace Monero transactions. They won't be able to see the amounts in them, but they will be able to see which outputs were spent when. So one of the great things about full chain membership proofs plus is that even if there's a massive supercomputer built, quantum or not, even if it's capable of breaking Monero's cryptography, it will not be able to break the privacy. It also has a few other benefits. It unifies all existing privacy pools. Right now, we have outputs that were before Ring CT, which means that they actually display their amounts on the blockchain. With Ring CT, we started hiding the amounts on the blockchain. And all of these are going to be migrated into full chain membership proofs plus. So even if you have an output from 10 years ago, which doesn't hide its amount, you will be able to spend it privately with full chain membership proofs. It also maintains eligibility for hardware wallets. This was something we wanted to be very careful regarding and had to spend a lot of time on because we didn't want to use a very expensive proof that hardware wallets would be unable to generate. We really want to make sure we maintained that. It also allows transaction chaining. Transaction chaining is where I can say, hey, I will send you this Monero in this output. And you can already create a transaction spending that output ready to be published to the blockchain before I even publish my transaction creating that output. And that enables a few different payment channel designs and some other L2s which could be used to try and scale Monero. So it's this good technical feature. And then notably, it's not using some zero knowledge proof that's brand new, that's unreviewed, or requires a trusted setup. It uses a generalization of Bulletproofs. Bulletproofs is a zero knowledge proof Monero has already used in the past and requires no trusted setup, which was a major concern for the community. So just for anyone who's been out of the loop, I understand not everyone here attends the Monero development meetings. We prior planned to move to a protocol known as Seraphis. Seraphis was going to be Monero's next privacy protocol. For all intents and purposes, full chain membership proofs is what we're moving forward with, and I do not see the Seraphis composition being deployed in the future, not even after full chain membership proofs occurs. Full chain membership proofs is feature complete with the Seraphis composition, so it has all of the same features and functionality. It also doesn't require a migration. And that was one of the big complaints about Serifis, is that users would have had to generate new addresses, and all existing addresses would have been deprecated and no longer usable in the future. But with full chain membership proofs ++, we can keep using existing addresses, and it had a tighter timeline for getting to mainnet. Because I can talk about why the full chain membership proofs ++ composition is great, I can talk about why the Serifis composition is great, but what's actually great is more privacy. And full chain membership proofs ++ brings with it the full chain membership proofs. And while full chain membership proofs were originally proposed for Serifis, it would have been a couple of years out, whereas the full chain membership proofs ++ effort was meant to be done within a year or so. So that tighter timeline to actually achieving stronger privacy was a major reason we decided to move forward with full chain membership proofs ++. The good news about it, though, is Serifis wasn't just this new privacy protocol. Serifis was also this cleaner Monero code base and all of this wallet software. And while it internally used the Serifis cryptography, we can move it to internally use the full chain membership proofs ++ cryptography. Serifis was going to support outgoing view keys and coded wallet support for that. Full chain membership proofs ++ also supports outgoing view keys. So we can use the existing support in the Serifis wallet code base for full chain membership proofs ++, and thankfully most of the code should be reusable, and we didn't, waste a couple of years on something that isn't going to be deployed. So these next few slides kind of go over what has been done to achieve full chain membership proofs ++. It's been a replacement for ring signatures has been desired for several years, but there's always been, it required a trusted setup, or for anyone who doesn't know, a trusted setup is where, say, 100 people get together and do a setup. But if all of those 100 people are malicious, they would be able to fake zero-knowledge proofs and forge them. So it no longer creates a trustless system. You're trusting these 100 people to have done their job correctly. And while you can get decent properties out of them, it's always been something Monero's rejected. So that set us back for multiple years. There's always been performance concerns and then feasibility concerns. When Serifis finally proposed a more amenable construction, which would allow itself to be done with full chain membership proofs, it was requiring a migration. So there's always been extensive discussions about how to achieve this in a practical way that we accept the security of and are confident in. So with regards to the research side of this, which is what I've spent a while doing myself, there's a very extensive document detailing the upgrade, including each of the components, to the overall functionality, to how it should be integrated. So if you want to learn the technical details of how all this happens, so if you understand enough cryptography that you are able to learn all of this without spending some time on that first, there is a document explaining this. This isn't just, code being thrown out there and everyone else accepting it. No, there is actually an extensive amount of documentation associated with this, allowing anyone to start review and working with it and understanding it. Generalized bulletproofs is the underlying zero-knowledge proof we're using. As I said, Monero has already used bulletproofs in the past, so it really shouldn't be too horrific to be working with them again. We've done the security proofs for them and had them reviewed, so we do have confidence in those for usage as our underlying zero-knowledge proof. We had to introduce a new component, the spend authorization and linkability proof. Right now, ring signatures are exactly that. They prove your output is one of the members of a ring, and they sign for it. They prove that you own for it. With full chain membership proofs ++, we split that into two different roles. We have the full chain membership proof, which says this is an output on the blockchain, and we produce a spend authorization and linkability proof, which is our signature. Yes, I am the owner of this output, and I want to use it for this purpose. That's actually what the ++ part is. When we were doing full chain membership proofs for Serifis, it was only doing the role of the membership proof, but the ++ part is also handling spend authorization and linkability. So the spend authorization and linkability proof is actually two existing zero-knowledge proofs. We're just composing them here. We're just shoving them together, saying it's a signature. We've had security proofs for that made. And then there is this one really tricky component that we're using to gain a lot of our efficiency and our performance. It's called a scalar multiplication gadget. It's premised on elliptic curve divisors. All of that is a word salad. You don't have to understand it. But we've worked extensively on proving it and getting proofs reviewed because we want to make sure that we have the full confidence in it and yes, that we can safely obtain this performance. So research has been ongoing for a while and it is being this very thorough process and we've made great strides on it to the point where most of the research and the follow-up security proofs and review of it is done. With regards to the development, the zero-knowledge proof, the generalized bulletproofs, has been implemented for a while. We've had a library for calculating those elliptic curve divisors around for a while, and that's recently been completed for a production context. The membership proof itself relies on something called a zero-knowledge circuit. I'm not going to get into that here, but the circuit uses all of these building blocks called gadgets. Those have been implemented for months. The circuit itself has been implemented, and the high-level full-chain membership proof and verify functions. If you don't actually care about how any of this code works, you just want to get your membership proof and make your transaction, we do also have those functions completed. So it is my goal to have a complete, ready for auditing set of libraries done for all of this by the end of the month, and with that we can close out my work on development of the libraries and move towards auditing of all of this with no more necessary active development. While we may still do some optimizations with regards to specific building blocks, it should all be done and ready for even deployment onto the Monero network. With regards to integration, that's largely been done by Jay Berman, who is giving a talk, I believe, Saturday? Tomorrow. It's tomorrow. I really encourage everyone to attend. It seems like it's going to be a great talk, and I really just support it being done. So they've worked extensively on the integration. I won't try to steal too much from their talk, but just summarize it. The full chain membership proof requires all nodes build and maintain a tree, specifically a Merkle tree, if you know what that is, but else just understand it's a thing that has to be done. They need to build this tree to verify proof successfully. So Jay Berman has been working for months on that and has done a very amazing implementation. It's better than anything I ever sketched. So truly credit has to go to them for it. They've also integrated that into wallets, which means wallets will be able to create these proofs without any concerns about privacy. If they did not locally have a copy of the tree, they would have to ask a node for information about the tree, and there's some concerns there. And the integration work now is on integrating the high-level proof and verify functions now that those are done, and actually being able to make and sign and verify transactions. And again, truly, Jay Berman's talk is tomorrow. Go see it. So that kind of leaves what's next. Finishing the security proofs and review of the academia. There are still a few topics that are ongoing there. Notably, the final pieces of the elliptic curve divisor proofs are ongoing, and then we just got one component back a few days ago, so now we have to kick that to review. We have to audit all of the libraries implementing this. The libraries themselves being done and ready for auditing doesn't mean they are in fact audited. We have to finish the integration, as prior noted when I was discussing the last slide. And then we also have to do all of the fun tasks of reviewing, implementing, auditing, and integrating Carrot. Technically, we don't have to do this, but we should, and we are going to. The reason it got approval throughout the community is it explicitly was not going to delay the deployment of full chain membership proofs and was being worked on completely in parallel. So I understand I'm talking a mouthful there, but please don't be concerned about it slowing things down. As I said, addresses will remain the exact same, but the way that your wallet reads them and works with them will change. And if you're a user, you don't have to care at all. It does not affect you, and you should not notice any differences. But what Carrot does is, with this new way of working with addresses, it maximizes the amount of features from full chain membership proofs that we can use. One of the things I noted was forward secrecy. So a quantum computer cannot figure out when your outputs were spent. It is only going to be new outputs created which support this. And the new outputs must be created with an amenable protocol, such as Carrot, in order to enable that functionality. So Jeffro is giving a talk on that. I truly support checking out their talk. Jeffro, when is your talk? Tomorrow. Tomorrow. Both the cool talks are tomorrow. Go see them. And then there already was 2 CCSs for full chain membership proofs ++. One was on the research and one was on the development, which raised a total of almost 3,000 Monero, which I'm very thankful to the community for. In the research CCS, raised 2,000 Monero in advance. We did not have the audits in front of us, but we knew we were going to be getting about 10 different research and audit tasks done over the following several months. And because of that, I didn't want to go to the CCS every month saying, hey, time for more money. And I just wanted to raise it ahead of time and give everyone clear expectations about how it's expected to go. So thankfully, that still has the majority of its funds, which is exactly where we want to be as we're done with most of the research, but we have yet to start on the auditing phase, which is also going to be quite extensive. That's actually the end of my full chain membership proofs ++ talk. I was also asked to briefly speak on Serai, which is something I'd be very happy to do. So I also have like 2 to 3 slides on that, and then if you bear with me, we'll have questions after. Serai is a decentralized exchange that I've been working on for the past 2.5 years now, or maybe actually approaching 3 years. And the point of it is to be an automatic and robust platform. It's not meant to be a centralized exchange which can pull their servers offline. It's not meant to be a centralized exchange which can just change their opinion about if they want to support Monero or not. It is meant to be fully decentralized and fully autonomous. At launch, it plans to support Bitcoin, Monero, and Ethereum. So if you have specifically either Bitcoin, Monero, Ether, or DAI, you will be able to swap them with each other once Serai launches. It does have its own network for the execution of those swaps, and it does use its own coin for routing liquidity and ensuring security. So you don't have to worry about if there's low liquidity between Monero and DAI, because it will internally be treated as Monero to the Serai coin to DAI. So the coins just individually have to have enough liquidity. They don't have to have liquidity against each other. And then I understand the concept of promoting a different coin is scary and weird at a Monero conference. Yeah, there's no pre-mine, there's no ICO, there's no debt fund. It's completely decentralized in that regard. Specifically, once the Genesis validators start the network, users will be able to provide Monero, Bitcoin, Ether, and DAI for liquidity, and they're going to receive an airdrop of the Serai coin, and that is going to be 100% of the supply at launch. And it's not 2 years later, my address gets 90% of the supply. Nope, the airdrop is the initial primary distribution, and I am actually never going to see any of these Serai coins unless I participate in the airdrop or some other distribution mechanism. The coins provided as liquidity with the airdrop Serai will form the initial liquidity, and this is actually when decentralized swaps will go live. When there's liquidity on the network, people will be able to make swaps and start enjoying their decentralized Monero swaps. Fees from those swaps go to whoever provides liquidity, and that liquidity can be removed at any time. You're not forfeiting it for a year, you're not forfeiting it for 10 years, you're not forfeiting it for life. If you want to remove your liquidity, you can do so immediately. But if you remove liquidity prior to this milestone known as economic security, you'll get your Bitcoin, Ether, Monero, DAI portion of it back, but the Serai we airdrop to you, that's going to be burnt. So you can leave whenever, but you got to stick with it if you want to receive the airdrop. And then once the network achieves economic security, which is this whole milestone, the airdrop Serai starts trickle feeding. So you'll be able to remove it for some portion, and that portion goes up by the day. So what does that mean for y'all? Presumably, you can just swap Bitcoin and Ether to Monero, and vice versa, decentralized, no centralized counterparties. If you want to provide liquidity, you can earn fees for that. And if you want to stake the Serai coin and run a validator, you can actually contribute to the decentralization of the network and earn emissions of the Serai coin for that. So that was my brief talk on Serai. And oh, I actually have when. I'm sorry. I have one more slide. But with regards to when, because as I've said, I've been working on this for 2.5 to 3 years, and I get asked when a lot. Our cryptography was actually audited, I think, over 1.5 years ago by now. The Bitcoin library that we use, that we wrote to marry our cryptography to the Bitcoin protocol, that's also been audited. We actually re-implemented the entire Monero transaction protocol in Rust and did our own multisig implementation for it, which has a lot of great properties compared to the multisig present in Monero itself. So we're actually planning to do a CCS for that in a couple of weeks to fund the audit of it, which has legitimately been probably 1 year of work on its own. So I'm really excited for that, and I'm really excited to have a proven, secure, and audited implementation of multisig. Right now, the Monero ecosystem does not have that. Our Ethereum smart contracts, which is how we integrate with Ethereum, those should be ready for auditing. We're also moving forward with review of our processor. That's one of our services. It processes like Bitcoin data, it processes Monero data, and provides a uniform view of it to the Serai network. So we're moving forward with review of that. And I'm finishing cleanup of our remaining services, the coordinator and the Serai node. So we're targeting a release candidate by the end of the year with audits and testnets going on in the new year. So yes, that is the end of my Serai talk. And if anyone has questions on either full chain membership proofs plus or Serai, please feel free to.
Hi, Luke. Thank you for a nice talk. Could you imagine a universe in which you would implement the full chain membership proof in C++?
I mean, no. I have absolutely no interest in doing that, and I see absolutely no incentive to do so. If someone does want it to be in C++ and they want to do their own implementation of it, I have no hate for them. I am here to give advice because one of the things about this is the full chain membership proof circuit, this CK circuit, a very specific thing. We have to generate it. And once we generate it, it spits out a ton of numbers. And these numbers get fed into the actual zero knowledge proof. That would be very annoying to implement in C++, but you also don't have to implement it in C++. You can take all of the numbers generated by the existing implementation, which is in Rust, a different programming language, and you can just copy them. You don't have to generate them every time. You can say, here are the numbers we need. We can use them with the C++ implementation. So I would be happy to give advice on that and contribute to that just as someone answering questions, but I don't think it provides any value, and I don't have the interest in spending, 1 to 3 months working on it when I don't believe it's impactful. I will clarify, just because the libraries are in Rust does not mean they're not usable from C++. They are already being integrated with C++ code bases.
Another thanks for the great talk and your great work. 2 slightly related questions. I saw in the dev talks or like the meetings a talk about limiting the amount of inputs and outputs and how they correlate to the transaction size compared to RingCT now. Maybe you can elaborate shortly on that. I wasn't able to keep up on that.
Yeah, right now outputs are limited to 16 because we use Bulletproofs. Now we don't use Bulletproofs anymore. We use Bulletproofs Plus, but the same theory applies. We use Bulletproofs Plus to prove outputs are valid. And if you have to prove for 16 outputs, that's fine. If you have to prove for 17 outputs, you have to pay the cost of 32. So the moment you pay for 17 outputs, the moment 17 outputs are in a transaction and you try to verify that many outputs, you might as well verify 32. The zero knowledge proof is pretty much just as expensive because it only works with powers of 2. So 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. Inputs prior didn't have any of this behavior. So we just said you're allowed as many inputs as you want because it doesn't affect us. If you put, 17 inputs into a transaction, you're only paying for those 17 inputs. With full chain membership proofs plus, we use a bulletproof and we go back to that power of 2 scaling. So now if you have 17 inputs in a transaction, you're actually forcing the network to verify the equivalent of 32 inputs, this much larger transaction. So as we set a max outputs value in the past to limit how inefficient transactions could be, there is now a proposal to set a max inputs value to limit how efficient inputs can be. And this may force people to use multiple transactions. If you had, 200 inputs, you used to be able to accumulate those in one transaction. Under a max inputs rule, no, you will not be able to accumulate 200 inputs in a single transaction. But it actually is more efficient for the network to verify multiple transactions with less inputs than verify one transaction with that many inputs because of how work sharing happens. So yes, we are discussing a max inputs just to remove inefficiencies, and they should actually be less computationally expensive for the entire network, even though it requires more transactions to be made.
Thank you for a fabulous talk. My question regards to the pre-ring CT outputs. Now, my understanding on this is that they're on the blockchain. When they get spent right now, they actually show us spent, and then it goes into the ring CT output. Am I correct on that?
So existing pre-ring CT outputs could have been migrated into ring CT, but weren't. If you were to spend them today, they will use a ring signature for the spending, and barring some edge cases, they will create a ring CT output. As in, you spend a pre-ring CT input, you make outputs just as you do in any other transaction, and just as in any other transaction, you make modern outputs, you make ring CT outputs. But as of right now, spending pre-ring CT outputs is done with the pre-ring CT cryptography.
Correct. So then it shows on the blockchain as that output then has been spent.
Within the it's still a ring. So
yes.
It does so you're spending a pre-ring CT output. It doesn't specify which.
Which one according to the ring structure of that ring CT of that era. Now, with full chain membership proofs plus, how are these outputs going to be treated? They'll appear the same? Is that what you're saying?
All outputs on the blockchain, including pre-ring CT, will be migrated into the full chain membership proofs structure. We could have migrated pre-ring CT into ring CT years ago. Mm-hmm. We did not. I do not know why we did not. I believe there was some commentary on statistical analysis, but with full chain membership proofs, we no longer have that statistical analysis commentary, which means I don't have to bother looking up what the arguments were at the time.
So then, basically, you could not be able to tell from the pre-ring CT output whether it's being spent or not?
You would not be able to tell if it was pre-ring CT or not, yes.
Correct. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Hi,
everyone. Thank you. This is amazing work. And my question is not connected to this work directly, but I would like to hear your opinion, how you see future Monero in terms of consensus. And do you think Monero, is it possible in any way to switch Monero to proof of stake in the future, maybe in connection to this work, or just basically want to know how you feel about proof of stake in general? Thank you.
So there will be a tech panel later today that I'm on. I think this would be a great question for that, especially if you have follow-ups. To give a very brief answer, I think the Monero community is very against proof of stake and unlikely to adopt it. I actually would like to discuss a finality layer, which presumably would be done with proof of stake in order to remove the 10-block lock. Because if we achieve finality, we can remove the 10-block lock, but without finality, the 10-block lock has its reasons to exist. So I'm not personally against proof of stake designs, but I think the Monero community is against them to the point where I'm not going to bother proposing proof of stake designs. I just don't believe it's a worthwhile discussion to even start due to community sentiment. One thing I will note is that proof-of-stake designs potentially, likely, rely on a time lock to prove that the output hasn't been moved since you started using it in a staking position. You can kind of work around this if you also reveal the key image. It's a whole thing, but basically one thing I do want to note is with full chain membership proofs ++, we are planning to deprecate time locks. Specifically, the current idea, although this is not set in stone, is that if you make a transaction with a time lock on the Monero network, after May 1st, it will no longer be honored. With the full chain membership proofs plus hard fork, we will invalidate all time locks made after May 1st, 2025. Not set in stone, but that's the current plan. So if your proof of stake design relies on a time lock, Monero is moving away from time locks. The full chain membership proofs design is not inherently incompatible with a time lock, but if you were to propose a proof of stake design requiring time locks, we are already moving in the opposite direction. So the idea with the May 1st deadline, and I will note, there's only been one transaction with a time lock in the past, 3-4 months? We did an analysis. We're like, oh, well, how many people are using this? There were 20 transactions which used a time lock. All of them were set to already be unlocked. None of them actually extended the duration they're locked for. They all were invalid, except for one, I believe, in the past 4 months. So if you time locked your Monero outputs, 5 years ago, that will still be honored. And if you make a transaction with the time lock before May 1st, that may still be honored. The plan is to honor it, but if someone out there is rude and they make 1 million transactions that are all time locked before May 1st, no, we are going to change that date. Because the issue is for each time lock transaction, we do pay a non-trivial performance and storage cost. So we don't mind honoring existing time locks so long as there's not too many of them. But if someone decides to be rude and force us to deal with a lot of them, we're just going to decide not to deal with them, and we will just invalidate them at the fork point. The other caveat I have is you should not consider time locks as this holy object, because I would honestly say Monero should move to a post-quantum solution within the next 5 years. I would legitimately say that. I'm sure this will be great for the tech panel later. But one of the things I want to note is when that happens, we are going to have to invalidate time locks, because you can't have a time-locked Monero output and a quantum computer. The quantum computer will just be able to see how to spend the Monero output, and it will just steal it for itself, or it will break Monero's cryptography. So no matter what, when we do a post-quantum migration, you're going to have to go online, you're going to have to spend the output, and specify a new key to future spend that output with. So no matter what, time locks are already going to be violated with the post-quantum migration, so they really shouldn't be considered this holy object. No, there were calls to completely invalidate them. We just wanted to be polite as long as it was reasonable to be polite.
Well, thank you very much, Luke. You don't get too many conferences where the main event is the second presentation. And this was very cool. This was actually a glimpse into the future of Monero and what you should expect from this project, which is going to get a much better anonymity set thanks to these full chain membership proofs. And I wish more projects would do something like this. I wish we could see something like this in Bitcoin, but it seems like we're stuck in a conversation about covenants, and we can't even agree on that. And the next speaker who's going to come on stage is Youssef, who is an expert in building peer-to-peer marketplaces. He is best known in the space for building Paxful, but then he moved away from that, and he's no longer responsible. Then he built something that's truly peer-to-peer. It was called, now it's called a No Once website. It's noonce.org, if I'm not mistaken. .com. Okay, you own that domain. Very nice. And it's built on top of CivKit, which is something very interesting and very novel. Basically, CivKit is the first, no Once is the first implementation of the CivKit protocol, and you're trying to build peer-to-peer marketplaces for the third world. You're actually going to Africa to talk with people and get them to become part of this economy. And recently, you decided to move away from being pressured by toxic Bitcoin maximalists to stay Bitcoin only. You started adding Litecoin, you started adding Monero. I think you're gonna add Xano also, and the Xano guys are here in the room, and I think there's gonna be an integration. But I don't want to spoil too much of what you're gonna talk about. I just wanna say that I'm a fan of your work, and I'm a fan of the fact that you're courageous and you don't care about what others think. You're building and you're saying what you think. And I hope that his presentation is going to reflect the spirit of his. Once again, for questions, step up to this microphone and please wear the hat for extra anonymity. Come on, Rick.
Thank you, my man.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah, my remote. For what, man? The slides?
Yes.
I didn't even look
you
at
can just call the next slide and someone else is going to do it for you.
Thank you, thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Then there's no need for this.
Yeah, you do need that though. For the screen.
Ah, yes, all right, of course. Let's not forget our friends at home. Of course, of course. All right. Thank you all so much for coming here. It's my pleasure to be here. I've been banned from pretty much every major Bitcoin conference. First in the United States, because they said I supported war, or I talked about war, when all I was doing was advocating for those little babies getting 2,000-pound bombs dropped on them. I told them to go to hell. Then I got banned from the biggest Bitcoin conference in Europe. Same reaction, same reason. Then I almost got banned from the biggest Bitcoin conference in Africa. And I actually brought the first cryptocurrency into Africa about 10 years ago, and I'll tell you how I did it. because I did it through a hack. Good news is my friends stepped up for me, and they said, if Ray goes, we go. And it is that spirit of fellowship that is what is going to give us victory. We are not just observers. We are warriors, aren't we? And warriors must hold the line. And when you see one of ours being attacked by the machine, when everyone's attacking that one guy, that's our boy right there. That's our man. That's the guy we step up to and defend. I'm here to talk to you guys about one thing, and that is winning. Winning is the only thing that matters even more than the truth, because we are in the end times right now, and I refuse to lose. That's the one thing about winners. We love winning, but we refuse to lose. And what's at stake right now is the entire universe. I will not accept my children growing up in a world that these devils want to engineer for themselves. They will grow up in the world that I engineer, and that all of us engineer together, because we defend our boundaries, and that is what warriors do. And here we are, defending this boundary right here. We have this little circle right here in this beautiful geodesic dome. Buckminster Fuller, a hero of mine. Essentially, we are in the business of, can you guess what is truly our business here? We are in the business of rebooting civilization. This is our business. The money, the technology, all this code and all these little bits and bobs that we're playing with are all because we want to give a real home for our species. Civilization. We had it before, and it was taken away from us inch by inch while we all slept. Are we asleep now? We are wide awake here, and we are still here as well. This is the true resistance right here in this room. Those of us did not sell out for a little more fiat, that stay true to the dream of Bitcoin. And right here in MoneroTopia, this is the evolution of Bitcoin. Because remember, technology is just technology. If it doesn't serve humans, then it has no purpose. Those who deify technology are doomed to humiliation and failure. Those who fight for humanity under the one God will have success in this life and the next. And we do want to be successful, don't we? Great. So a disclaimer. Are there any spooks in the room? I would concur. Well, my spook radar is very strong. But I have to say, they say Bitcoin is for enemies. Sun Tzu would not approve. I don't believe Monero's for enemies. We keep our friends close and we keep our enemies out of the circle. That is what grown-ups do. I'm just putting it out there, so you guys know where I'm coming from. This is the real resistance. So, a little bit about me and who I am. My name is Ray. I was born in Cairo, a little suburb outside of Cairo, on a farm actually. There was no opportunity where I was born. So my mother and father, they were school teachers. They packed up and they went to America. My father went first and he washed dishes, married some fat old lady to get his passport, then brought me, my mother and sister over. That's my story. And we made our way in cold, rainy, gray New York City. Yes, that's where I grew up, because there was no opportunity in Egypt. Well, I imagine a world where my parents and those like my parents don't have to leave paradise, because the weather in Egypt is pretty awesome. It's kind of like Mexico. Why should we have to leave? What is the thing that has destroyed Egypt, that has destroyed Africa? That one thing I kept trying to understand, right? What is the genesis, the real nature, the kernel of the problem? Why are we all here trying to fix the money problem? It's 2024 and the money problem is not fixed. Everyone here has a bank account, right? Or has had a bank account in their lives? Yeah, all right. We're not underbanked or unbanked. If anything, we're overbanked. Where did this money come from? Why do you need this money? We've all got problems with money. And the more of it you have, the more of a problem you seem to have with it. Unless you get past a certain point and sell your soul. So the reason the world is so broken is because the money system has been intentionally rigged against us, and I gave this a name. And let's take Africa, for example. It's the best example. I grew up in the West, and the only image I ever had of Africa was three things: poverty, disease, and corruption. As a young man growing up, those things stick in the back of your head. It creates an artificial ceiling above you from which you cannot break through. And I thought of myself as inferior in many respects to the people around me. Even though I knew I was quite intelligent, these things stick with you. This is part of the engineering. The reason places like Africa are poor, they call it the third world, very derogatory. It's really the developing world. And it's been trying to develop for a while, but something has been in the way. There is nothing wrong with people from the global south. I prefer that term. The problem is we need to get something out of the picture, and that are these walls that have been built around the global south. Could people in the back shut the fuck up, please? I'm a great man. My words are immaculate. No, I'm just kidding, but please. Look, I gave it a name, everybody. Economic apartheid. And it is the worst form of apartheid. There are 55 states in Africa, and yet you can't send money from one state to the next, even if it's right next door. You're better off getting on a bus or a train. It's the truth. The banks do not work. There is no SWIFT in Africa, and that is intentional. And it doesn't stop there, because I bring this point up and people would say, well, those Africans just don't know how to get things together. Well, guess what? The Africans managed to pioneer mobile money 7 years before PayPal. M-Pesa is the most popular mobile money wallet in Africa. In Kenya, 98% of Kenyans have an M-Pesa account. It exists in 7 different African countries, and yet you cannot send money from an M-Pesa account in Kenya to an M-Pesa account in Ghana or South Africa. Are you telling me that the Africans managed to pioneer this amazing technology, mobile money, but we're too dumb to actually make it work across borders? Oh no. Africa is the most overregulated region in the entire world. And it is this overregulation that creates poverty because it inhibits trade. When you ask any non-local business person in Africa, how much money are you missing out? How much revenue are you missing out on because you can't accept payments from the other 54 states on this great continent? They will all say the same thing. A lot. At least a 10x in revenue. Means at least a 10x in jobs. And that would solve so many problems. Yet they cannot, because the money system is intentionally broken. It cannot jump across borders. Which is why when I heard about peer-to-peer electronic cash, I was like, wow, that could solve so many problems. Because I knew the problems that Africa had with money. It wasn't just remittance, it's payments, it's everything. So I went over there, I talked to the people in Nigeria, I talked to the people in Kenya, but I was faced with the problem. And the problem was, there was no cryptocurrency 10 years ago in Africa, none at all. And in fact, it's nearly impossible to get money out of the country. So how are these Africans going to pay for that crypto, going to pay for that Bitcoin from the Chinese, the Europeans, and the Americans? It was $10 million for 8,000 tons of cacao beans. That's the only other way I could figure out to get money out of Nigeria into Rotterdam and get the crypto in. And I didn't have $10 million to buy that 8,000 tons of cacao beans because I was kind of homeless at the time. So I found a hack. Who here likes hacks? Any hackers in the room? Yes. That is our business. That is our way. We are hackers. So guess what? I showed the Nigerians, instead of getting paid with Western Union and losing 50% off the official rate, because the government will literally give people, including Western Union, half as much Naira, local money, instead of the black market price, which is double. So whenever you send someone in Africa a remittance, they're getting half as much as they would normally get on the black market, which is really just the street price. There's nothing dark or evil about it. So I showed them how they could buy a gift card or tell their uncle in Pasadena, California, buy a gift card at the drugstore or to the gas station, scratch off the back, send me the code, and I showed them how they could sell it to someone in China for 50% off. And they get crypto. And then they could take that crypto and sell it for a huge profit to the guy next door. And that's how we got the first cryptocurrency into Africa. Yes, through that hack, $60 million a week started to flood over through gift cards. Because gift cards are the world's first digital bearer asset. $140 billion a year economy that was here before cryptocurrency, and I used that to get cryptocurrency into the global south. I'm telling you guys this because you need to know these tricks, right? Because we've got to do the same thing right now. The good news is there's a lot more cryptocurrency floating around, so you think, hey, maybe we can just rely on getting people to convert their Bitcoin or USDT into Monero. But there's a small problem, right? Monero's been taken off all the exchanges. So they're kind of taking us back to square one. And that is intentional. Like Mayor Amschel Rothschild said, give me the control of the volume of currency in circulation, and I care who not makes the laws, right? If you can control the on-ramps and off-ramps, you have control of that volume, don't you? It's quite a simple template that they use, actually. It is quite simple, actually. But they have tremendous resources, and they've been at it for about 2,000 years, and we're only just waking up right now. So there's a bit of work to do. So the question is, what is our path to victory? What is our real path to victory? We're here and we want to evangelize Monero because it's the next evolution in money. Money should be private. Money should be completely fungible. Yes, we all agree on these things. But how are we going to take this into massive overdrive? They're literally dropping bombs on babies right now and bragging about it. So it's time for us to get off our ass and start working together. Right? It's not about who gets the credit. Believe me, I don't want to be sticking my neck out. There's an old saying from Zimbabwe, the higher the monkey climbs up the tree, the more people can see his butt. And Uncle Sam's taking a long gander at mine, believe me. And the higher I climb up that tree, the worse it's going to get. That's why peer-to-peer works, right? Because it's not just me climbing up that tree. It's all of us together climbing up that tree. They've killed 60 African leaders in the past 70 years. Oh, yes, they just killed them. They didn't hit their head on the bathtub and die. Oh, no. It was something else. So I want to stay alive. I want to stay alive to see this win happen. So what am I doing to make things happen, right? So I brought the first cryptocurrency into the global south, particularly into Africa. And it was a huge success. I built a company of 88 million in revenue, 450 employees. Got on Time magazine. All these things are nice, blah, blah, blah. But so what? You know what's really amazing about all that? I did it without taking a single penny in venture capital. Completely bootstrapped. That's a gift from God. I hope everyone here believes in God. I really hope you do. Because if you don't, you're a loser. I'm just saying. It's got to be the way, brothers and sisters. There's a price to be paid for success. There are things we must give up, and there are things that we must do. And by do, I mean actively doing. So what is the next step right now? You know what the best way to figure out what we need to do is? The very best method? It's to look at what the bad guys fear most. And they're so arrogant right now. They're just putting it out there. Whatever they're blocking, whatever they're banning, that's hovering right over the target. Monero is public enemy number one, and that's why I'm here, right? That's why I'm here. Because I want to be a part of this, and I want to put some jet fuel into this thing. I want it to go to the next level. That next level is the world's first network state. What is a network state, you add? There's some people that have talked about this concept, but their idea of a network state is weak. And I do detest weakness and the weak. No, the network state is something very powerful. We have all the tools to actually build our own nation state right now, but it is distributed. It is decentralized. Now, that doesn't mean it's without leadership, because human beings are hierarchical creatures. This is how the One designed us. We must have leadership. There must be a place for that, of course. But we must decentralize things as much as possible. Who built the world's first cryptocurrency-based marketplace with tremendous traction? Do we know his name? It wasn't me. It wasn't me. It was Ross. Ross Ulbricht, say his name. Ross Ulbricht. He was truly one of us. can imagine him sitting there in that library, working on his laptop. All of a sudden, the feds roll over, put this guy in jail for 2 life sentences and 40 years for running a website. For running a marketplace. We have to look at what he was actually doing. He didn't try to kill anyone. That's all bogus, of course. He just built a marketplace, a place where people could trade, and he used Bitcoin. They fear marketplaces. They fear the free market. That is what they are scared of. Because it's commerce. People from all over the world can trade with each other and anything they want. That will create wealth. Commerce creates wealth. It does. Because then I can build something cool and I can sell it to all of you and I have a way to collect those payments, right? Every business I ever started was peer-to-peer. My first business was peer-to-peer ringtones. I sold ringtones online in 1999. Yeah, you upload these little notes, and someone else put it up online, big catalog. It was like a Tower Records or Napster for ringtones. That's what people called it. And someone else could download it. And I made money off of that. So I just opened it up for the world. Marketplaces work, everyone. And Ross Ulbricht built a great one. That's why he's in jail. We need more marketplaces. Selling diapers and weed, okay, that's cool. But you know what we really need a marketplace for right now? Money. It's about the money problem. That money has to flow. That is our work. That is how we are going to reboot civilization. Our mission is simple, to make that money flow. And they will call us all kinds of names. They will say we're laundering money. The implication or the connotation being that that money is dirty, but it's not. This is all clean money. If there is a professor, a math professor in Iran, one of my friends actually is that, she wants to buy an apartment in the UK. It's impossible for her to do so. Is that money laundering? Helping this poor lady get her money out of there into another place so she can buy an apartment? That is perfectly clean, good money, but yet they brand it and label it as something dark. So we must make that money flow, and marketplaces are the way. What tools do we need to create to give people a way to create these markets? Well, I built one. It's a marketplace for money. I started first with a company called Paxful. I left that place because it was an American company. And we all have to understand there's nothing good or beneficial that's going to come out of America or the entire West. I'm sorry to burst your bubble, everybody. But pretty soon, the Mexicans here are going to build a wall, their own wall, to keep the gringos out. And I'll be on that wall with my crossbow, helping repel the zombie invasion. So you best get on the right side of the wall right now. And I've gotten on the right side of that wall. Because I've chosen my allies, and I know who my enemies are. And we should all accept that. You can only vote with 3 things: your feet, your attention, and your money. Best you vote with all 3 if you're a real warrior. Cut your losses and move on. The Global South is our refuge. What I am trying to do with this company called No One's is to build a global free market for the entire Global South. For everything, but starting most importantly with money. With things especially like gift cards, which are a huge way for us to get access to all of these amazing retail economies. I'm doing this work right now and it's working. It's about $500 million in volume. For peer-to-peer, that's a lot. It's not wash trading, everybody. It's all real volume. Good, clean money. And there's literally 1,000x more room to grow. CZ tried to buy my old company. I told him, no, bro, sorry. You're too centralized for me, buddy. I didn't take his money, so he just copied it. And I was glad he did. This is another option. And now more people are into peer-to-peer. But let me tell you, peer-to-peer is the way to build cash flow. I've created an army of young entrepreneurs around the world who are thankful to me because they have made their living with peer-to-peer. Sure beats drop shipping or anything else. There's no business like the money business, right? There ain't no business like the money business. And it's the money business that we are in, right? We're in the money business. Don't be ashamed of it. It's a hell of a business. All right, so I don't know how much time I have, everybody. And I know I should be going through these slides right now. I'm really curious as to what my team did for me here. God knows I don't need no slides. This thing isn't even working. Is anything happening? No, no. Oh, there we go. That's me. Look at that fro. It's pretty nice, huh? I tied it in a ponytail right here. See? I do listen to my marketing department. Well, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Whatever. All right. I'm just going the wrong way. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's great. Some good numbers there, huh? Doesn't answer to Big Brother. That's our privacy policy. It's 7 slides. Big Brother, go home. We want as little data about you as possible. We flush it every 24 hours. So that the man comes to us, we tell him, well, sorry, we ain't got nothing for you, homie. Time to go home. Throw yourself under the bus. Pretty novel, huh? Every other exchange has a privacy portal. 300 pages of legalese. To hell with all that, and to hell with Big Brother. It is possible for a centralized company to do the right thing if their CEO has some huevos, you know? Got to have those huevos, right? Not many people have those huevos, man. Offer him a nice penthouse in Miami, it'll sell right out. Sad story. But not me. I love being defiant. Yeah. All right, they said it. That's right. Your money is no one's business. Kind of catchy, huh? Kind of cool. So, guys, I made enough money. Back in the day, I was happy being retired. But I didn't see anyone around trying to do the right thing, trying to really set an example. And I'm going to set that example. Bitcoin's community has become a cult of profit worshippers. NGU, number go up. We all know this, right? That's where we're here. And this reminds me of where Bitcoin was in 2011. Bunch of heroes sitting around. Bunch of weirdos, too, but it's all right. Believe me, I'm not normal. Nor do I want to be. Maximus clowns. Yes, they are indeed clowns. The original mission, peer-to-peer electronic cash, for the purpose of uplifting humanity. Right? Huh? Sound good? Yeah? Yeah? I hope so. KYC is a problem, guys. It is an intentionally designed apparatus to exclude 90% of humanity. I'm someone that actually ran a compliance program, top-tier compliance program in America for 8 years. I had 88 people in a company of 450 people. That's bigger than most banks. I tried to do everything by the book and exceed their expectations, and they still didn't want me around. KYC is broken by design. What we need is KYP. Know your peer. Let people decide their element of risk, right? If you're selling crypto to someone with a PayPal, you're going to want to know that this guy is not some scammer that just stole some granny's PayPal account. You're going to want him to see a picture of him with that ID, right? And that's fine, but let the people decide. That is how to do KYC right. It is the foundation of banking, so instead of KYC, I propose KYP, know your peer. Yes, I've already said all this stuff, huh? Were you guys paying attention? I'll give you a moment to take a picture of these slides. That's right. Financial apartheid. Start using that term, because that is why Africa and the global south is poor. It's not low IQ, everybody. It is not that. That is a massive psyop against these people. These are some of the brightest, most ambitious people in the world that when they come on fair footing, man, believe me, these people rise to the top. Look at the Nigerians. These are overachievers everywhere they go, and I'm supposed to believe that these people are low IQ, that's why they're poor, or their leaders are corrupt, that's why they're poor. Who's paying off those corrupt leaders? Their money is not in Africa. Their money is in New York, Paris, and London. And that's a problem we're going to fix, right? Self-custody. It's a beautiful thing. Now, let's be honest with each other here. How many people here think that mainstream is really going to embrace self-custody the way it is right now? No, it's not going to work. Come on now. We got some work to do. But these leaders, you know, they can definitely embrace self-custody. And then they won't be beholden to these dark powers. And that's a huge win. And right now I'm taking any win I can get. Because I like racking up those wins. So should y'all. I just want people in the global south to trade freely. All the black, brown, and yellow people, I want them to trade freely. White people too. Let's face it. White man ain't doing so well right now either, right? You're really not, brothers. They got you in a headlock. And you're just trying to wake up out of it now, which is great. Join the party. The global south is where it's at. There's no racism here. We welcome everybody. We are human beings. We deserve to be wealthy. It is our work that is wealth. What is money? What is it? It's freedom, yes. Very poetic, my good man. It almost felt like that was coming from behind me somewhere. Yes. Money is freedom, indeed it is. But let's break it down a bit more technically. We know it's not paper. It's not necessarily gold or silver either, right? All money is human work containerized to transcend time and space. So I can do that work in New York City, come over to Dubai, and I can buy what I need. I don't have to start making shoes there or building websites there from scratch. It's a beautiful invention. Yet they've taken that away from us. Now we take it back. Money is just human work. If you're young, if you're able, if you're ambitious, you should have all the money in the world. A network state. This is what we're building. Facebook was set to become the world's first network state, actually. All they needed was a payment system. 2 billion people, they built Libre. And then what happened? This is very important if you're an astute thinker and you want to understand geopolitics and the way this machine works. Facebook is a company completely owned by the man, yet the regulators shot it down. Why? Because they didn't want all of the people in the global south to be able to trade freely with each other, because that would create too much wealth too quickly. It would break their matrix of financial economic apartheid, which they have spent the past 70 years building. They said, no way. Sorry, Zuck, can't let you do that. And they shot it down. But guess what? Someone came along that actually did it. He just got out of prison. His name is CZ. He built Binance. They had a wallet, a universal wallet that anyone could use. And he was making really real strides into the global south. He saw what I was doing and he said, yes, that is the way. The global south is the future. And then what did he do? He built his own peer-to-peer. He copied my platform, built a peer-to-peer, made it great, one of the best. And then Uncle Sam saw that and he would say, wait a minute now. What did that boy do? It's not just a shitcoin casino no more, no. He's got a wallet and a peer-to-peer marketplace now. A marketplace, you say? Well, slow down there, boy. We can't let that Chinaman run away with the golden goose. We got to bring him back in and put him in jail, and that's what they did. It wasn't just 4 months that he got off easy. It wasn't just $8 billion he got off easy. He had to give them control of Binance. That's what he did. He said, we want our compliance team in charge. They call it compliance watcher, right? Someone's going to sit there and watch things. Guess what the first thing this person did? First day of work at Binance. The first thing that they did was they banned Pan-African trade on Binance peer-to-peer. So what I'm talking about is not just a conspiracy theory, folks. They really don't want Africans trading with each other. They really don't. I run out of time? Well, now they're re-KYCing everybody every 3 weeks. That's, again, what the American Compliance Department will do. So America completely owns Binance. There's a fellow here. His name is Gustavo right here. The IDF blew up his villa. But first, Binance locked his life savings up. Said, hey, you want it back? Talk to the IDF. Sent over all his KYC address and everything. And his beautiful villa, which his parents built 12 years building, got a nice big old bomb right there. And it's not just Palestinians, they're doing it to everyone with a Muslim name. And believe me, we're going to be joining that party real soon. In fact, we're already on that list. We're already on that list, guys. And that's why I built No Ones. It's just part of the solution, though. I actually want everyone here to steal my idea. I don't just want to be the only guy doing this. Again, remember that monkey up the tree? My big old butt right there? No. I need some help out there. It's lonely. And there's plenty of money to share for everyone. Are you guys going to really move me off this stage right now? You're going to come up here, bro, and try to kick me off this stage, man? You don't want to hear another word I have to say? Q&A. People have questions for me? I'm not even finished with my fancy presentation. My team put this together. What am I going to? Let me go through it real quick then. Let me see what else they got. I'm just as curious as y'all, you know. Nothing has changed since high school. Actually, it was over. That was it. That's me right there. Look. Yeah. I've been working out, believe me. Believe you me. Well, this presentation is over, so I guess we can go to the questions. Believe me, I can talk for hours up here. I love to talk because I love to repeat the same thing over and over again. Why? Because I want to see you all turn into a bunch of little rays. Now, I'm not expecting you all to be as, as pretty as I am. That's impossible. But we can educate people about the same message, the message of hope, inspiration, pro-humanity. Humans are good. We're a great little species made by a creator that loves us, and we can all have wealth. Absolutely. There's enough to go around for everyone. Do Mexicans have to suffer so Americans can live a good life? Now they're living a hell of a horrible life too, and we're all seeing it. We are all in the same boat. We just need to remove the cancer. Economic apartheid is that cancer. Monero is one of the tools. I am building another tool. I want you all to join me and build companies like this, build teams like this. Help me build your own. Let's all go in. This is the peer-to-peer revolution. It began with the internet, right? And we disrupted everything from dog food to shoes to law, everything, except for money, because we couldn't touch that layer. Then we got peer-to-peer electronic cash, and now these fools came and clawed it away from us. Well, guess what? Human ingenuity is timeless. It is unstoppable. Now we have Monero. We've had Monero all this time. It's been sitting right here, so we're going to jump on top of it. We're going to put the crown jewel in the peer-to-peer revolution. Remember, it is a battle of inches. We will have a grand victory at the end of this, and I promise you, you guys don't know when that victory is, but I will personally be advocating for 21 days of constant celebration. It's going to be a wild party, you all, and you all deserve it. Thank you. I'm open for questions. No clapping. Let's just get straight to the questions. The war chief doesn't need your applause. Thank you anyway.
That might be a silly question, but what actually is no one? Like, you talked about it more vaguely or broadly speaking, but what actually is the platform? Is it like a local Bitcoin or local Monero, or what is it actually?
So it's many things, There's a peer-to-peer marketplace, which is what local Bitcoins did first. Then I copied them and made it more for gift cards in the global south to onboard people, solve real problems, had success there. Then CZ copied me, and now everyone has a peer-to-peer marketplace, which is great. And no one's is more than just a peer-to-peer marketplace. It's an amazing wallet. It's a virtual Visa debit card. We have a spot exchange. We're going to add yield. We're going to add all those amazing projects, right? Products. So we can take back the financial layer, right? The economic pillar, the money pillar is what these bad guys took first. But guess what? It's not enough. We need to take back the money pillar and the information pillar at the same time now. Pavol Durov of Telegram was arrested. Macron said, hey, come over for dinner, bro. He came over. And while his plane was in the air, he became a wanted man, and now he's in jail. And he had to hand over the crown jewels for running over a chat app. What they don't like is what we must do. So no one's will also be building a decentralized messenger in there as well. But someone has to do it, so I'm doing it. You all want to compete with me? Please do come in. No one's is the world's first network state that's actually going to hold out, be completely sustainable. And I have some ideas to make that happen. Radical transparency, that's one of our virtues, one of our 3 values. You can go right now to No One's and see my entire CEO dashboard. It's the only company in the world where the CEO shares his entire dashboard of the world. You can see all the stats that I see. Plus, everyone eats, right? 50% of our profits go back to our community. That was a mistake that CZ made. He did not leave enough money on the table. I am leaving money on the table for everyone. So we all come in and win together. And that's all it is, brother. It's my effort to build the world's first sustainable network state. It's a complex topic, but basically we should all have a citizenship that exists out there in the ether, and we can go wherever we want. No one's actually made it real, just like no one made the iPhone, a mobile phone that was worth a damn real, until Apple made it real, right? I'm going to make it real, God willing. That's what it is. Great question from our German brother over here. You hold it down, brother. We know you're occupied. We're coming, man. Don't worry. I'm sorry. I had nothing to do with that. Just those Americans, bro. Anyway. What's up? I hear you, bro.
So a lot of us in the Monero community funded a economic institute in Nigeria with a guy named Econ Bro on Twitter. I don't remember his name.
Econ Bro.
Yeah, C-R-A-U maybe. Okay. But that's so much question and comment. I think you guys should know about each other. Maybe have a chat
That's right. Well, the war chief needs more friends. Because it's kind of lonely being the war chief, you know? Gets lonely out there. Thank you, brother, for bringing that up. I will seek out Econ Bro and see what he has to offer. An Austrian. Oh, nice. Oh, I like Austrians, bro. I surely do. All right. Any other questions here? Who dares? Come up. Please do. I welcome questions. It's quiet now. I've scared everyone away. Surely must be some questions. The man with the mustache. Oh, I know you have some questions. Men with mustaches always have questions, don't they? But not you today. The German brother again. That's right. Let's do it.
You talked about being the only one in the tree, and like if I don't know who comes to your corporation and says, please give me the data you have about your users, and you make sure to not have that information. But I mean, we need to trust you with that. So, are you thinking about maybe building whatever you have into a more like decentralized form, where at some point even if they would take you out, your idea would still live on?
Absolutely, my good man. In fact, I've been working on that project called CivKit, Civilization Toolkit, for the past year, an open source decentralized marketplace. And when I started working on it, I realized, you know what? To actually build a marketplace, it's not just an order book, an escrow, and a wallet. You need a lot more to make it work. And all of those little bits and pieces actually resemble the services that we trust our governments to offer, that really need trust, right? Like in the case of a financial dispute, who's going to arbitrate? You need a court. You need a court system. You need a financial adjudicator in there to come in and moderate. And I built that for the past 10 years. I built a whole system of financial moderators to finance it. Dispute arbitration is hard. So I built it in a centralized way. I built a great team to do that. Now we actually have to build a decentralized marketplace for those financial dispute arbitrators as well. Absolutely. Courts can also be decentralized. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be easy. Believe me, it's a massive challenge. It's actually harder than Bitcoin to get that right. I mean, Elon Musk has a hell of a time just trying to keep bots off Twitter. Imagine when it's money at stake, how much harder it will be. But that must be done. But to make that work, you need a good system of reputation as well, right? Reputation is another massive challenge that we have to decentralize. And wouldn't it be amazing if the Global South had their own credit score? If there was an algorithm that could actually give people their own score of credit worthiness depending on their peer-to-peer trades, that would be revolutionary. That would open up capital to billions of people. The world needs that too. And issuance as well. All these countries should be able to issue their own currency in a way that makes sense, in a way that is transparent. But yes, brother, I have been thinking about it, brother. And I've been working on more than just these pretty clothes, I assure you. I've been busy. I don't have a social life. Don't want one. I'm in it to win it, brother. It's the resistance or bust. Who's with me? Yeah? Yeah? You willing to give up your weekend for that too? I hope so. It's going to take all our weekends. Or maybe you can have one down the line sometime. All right. Any more questions? The Austrian brothers again, give me applause. My man. My man. My man. All right. You really kicking me off this stage, bro? Because I got another hour left in me, at least. Thank you all.
All right, things are picking up here at MoneroTopia. How's it going, guys? Everybody having a good time so far? All right. Yeah, it's going to pick up. There's more and more momentum as you will see. I'm excited because we actually do have a bunch of Monero accepting vendors out there. We've successfully onboarded them. Some of them were having issues, and now we have them connected to a Starlink Wi-Fi. And then we have a Monero node running on the same Wi-Fi system, and they're connecting their wallet to it that way. So now it's running like fast and seamlessly. Just had to say that because it's very exciting to say. You appreciate that, right? That's what we wanted to do at PorcFest. So guys, next up is Pavol Luptak. He's kind of a hero of mine. The guy, he's not just one of these talks the talk. He also walks the walk. Very well-informed individual. He does adversarial thinking at its best with regards to how the state is always trying to get their pound of flesh, and kind of Pavol is one of these guys that's figured out how to deal with these mafias. Pavol, take it away.
Thanks a lot. Hi, guys. I'm so happy that I have finally come here, because like 12 hours ago I was in Buenos Aires, so I have come here directly from the airport. My presentation will be more than up to date. The topic of my presentation is will the new rich and influential libertarians and cryptoanarchists save the world from dystopia? So I'm going to explain you, there are not so many people, so I really appreciate if this presentation can be like, if you have any question, just ask me and we can just discuss our own opinions. Okay. So something probably you are not aware of, but you should be. I'm not telling that all crypto hodlers are libertarians, but a significant part of crypto hodlers are libertarian. And I would say like a majority of Monero hodlers are libertarians or anarchists or crypto anarchists. So this is like a pure fact. So the most crypto hodlers, and it doesn't mean if it is Bitcoin or Monero, are libertarians or at least followers of the Austrian economic school. And the reason why these people started to be behind like a crypto is because they were the first ones who realized that like a fiat money is just pure scam. And it's emitted from the pure air. So, and now what is just happening, crypto is going to the moon. Especially Bitcoin is going to the moon. We can see it now. We have all-time high. And it also means that crypto people will be the richest and the most, and basically being rich means powerful. So crypto people will be most powerful people in the future. Okay? What does it mean? That now we have new crypto aristocracy on the rise. So this is like a Wolf pyramid from 2020-22. And what we can see here is that now approximately 25,000 people in the world, they own more than 50 Bitcoins. And these people are basically like super millionaires now. And it's quite likely that in the future, there is estimation that in 5 years the crypto people will be own more than 50% of all wealth in this world. So hodlers can grow up to 50% of current financial elites in the following years. So what does it mean exactly? If crypto Bitcoin goes to the moon, which is really highly probable, in the future, in the future means in 1 or 2 years, there will be even more rich and more powerful people. And for example, in case of Bitcoin, we can see a rise 1,000% every 2 years. And when you are basically rich, it means you have like a power to change the world. And change the world means you can change the world according to your wish. And at the same time, what you can see that like most people stay no-coiners, they even don't have like any crypto coin. And most of these people, they believe in a democratic system. So basically, what we can see now, thanks to crypto, which is going to the moon, which is changing our society, it's really likely that the most rich, most wealthy people in the future will be crypto people. And most people who believe in democracy, they will stay poor and they will become victims of fiat inflation. So, and unfortunately, most of these people, they just miss the crypto train, and they won't be able to adapt soon to this like a decentralized monetary system. So at the same time, like we have upcoming like a crypto aristocracy, we should expect in the following years new coiner plebs on the rise. I don't like it, but it will happen. And I'm going to, and in my presentation, I'm going to describe you consequences of this fact, and you will be surprised. So one thing you should be aware, even in the future, we will still live in a democratic society. So these poor no-coiner people, they will still be the majority of democratic power. So it's quite, and the crypto people, even in the future, they will be like a minority in the society. And because the poor no-coiner people will be majority of the society, they will have like a democratic power, it's pretty likely that they will approve and they will support enforcement of the UBI, which is universal basic income. And it's so basically it's pretty likely UBI will be introduced in the future, and the UBI will be used as an excuse for introduction of CBDC. So basically, the governments in the most countries, they will say, okay, you want to receive every month universal basic income, okay, but we can distribute it, we can pay you UBI only using CBDC. So basically, I think that it's quite likely that CBDC will be introduced thanks to UBI, because most people, they just want money for nothing, just the government imitated money, and it'll be possible, and it will be the best excuse to introduce CBDC. One important thing to mention is that despite the fact that, especially when we are talking about Monero or crypto, the government doesn't have and won't have the control over virtual world, over virtual cryptocurrencies, for example, over decentralization. But at the same time, they have, and they will have, power over physical world. So it's quite likely that they won't be able to regulate Monero, for example. They won't be able to regulate Bitcoin, especially in this decentralized virtual world. But still, they will have even stronger power in the physical world. So you should expect increase of taxes and regulation in a physical world. And what is just happening, for example, in Europe, we can see like radical increasing of property tax. In Czech Republic, Slovakia, I'm originally from Slovakia, they triple price like a tax from property, like a property tax. And at the same time, we can see introduction of the wealth tax. There are countries like France, like the Netherlands, like even Switzerland. In all these countries, there's like a wealth tax. And if you are like a wealthy person, you have a lot of properties, for example, a lot of money in your bank, you need to pay a wealth tax. And it's quite likely that most Western governments, they will introduce wealth tax. So now we can see it like all these green and yellow countries, they have already introduced like a net wealth tax or at least wealth tax on some selected assets. Then what we can see, and this is like a true declaration of the war, is the recent paper from ECB. You probably know this paper, but basically, like a European Central Bank, they declare that early Bitcoin adopters basically are stealing economic value from latecomers. So this is like a typical argument that was used like hundreds years ago against technology. And unfortunately, I'm afraid of that this ECB paper can be used as an excuse to introduce another like harsh taxes and bonds. Then we have citizenship-based taxation. You probably know these citizenship-based taxation countries. The biggest one is the US, then in Europe you have Hungary, then you have Eritrea, this one is Eritrea, then you have like a Tajikistan. But you probably don't know that recently France introduced citizenship-based taxation. If you're like a French citizen and you want to move out of France and you want to live at some place where the taxes are at least 50% smaller than in France, you have at the same time you will still have like a tax duty in France, and you will be French tax slave. So all these countries exit now, and this is something different. Exit tax on the rise. So basically, a lot of countries in Europe, Germany, Netherlands, Norway, Spain, they have already introduced exit tax. What does it mean? It means if you're like a tax resident of this country and you want to change your tax residency, or you just want to move your company, for example, from Germany to Switzerland, you are the victim of exit tax and you have to pay it. It's also called like expatriation tax. You can find more information here. And more countries now, they're introducing exit tax. By the way, for the first time exit tax was introduced by Nazis before the Second World. It was like a 25%, and they tried to tax all Jews who were trying to escape from Germany because of this like a Nazi system. So the original idea was made by Nazis. Maybe I should mention another two countries that introduced 42% capital gain tax on crypto. The first country is Italy, the second country is Denmark. So these two countries, recently Denmark and Italy, they decided to fight crypto, and they basically don't want any crypto people in their countries. They just want to force crypto people to leave Italy and also Denmark. And because, as I told you, it's only a question of time when everybody of us will just become crypto millionaires. And it's also the question of time with the governments, they will try to target all these crypto millionaires. And they will do it according like your KYC purchases. So after, I think it's completely obvious you shouldn't use like a KYC exchanges at all. They will do it according to a crypto tax declaration. So basically, if you have ever declared crypto, the government knows you own crypto. And they cause you problems in the future. So my personal recommendation, never ever declare crypto, but of course do it in the legal way if it is possible. Declare crypto means like usually in the most countries, like European countries, if you don't sell crypto, there is no like a tax event, so you don't need to declare anything. You only just hodl like a Monero or you hodl Bitcoin, you have no tax duties. The problem is when you're trying to sell it for fiat, for example. Then, if you have any physical properties, any visible wealth in the physical world, they will know exactly you're like a wealthy person, and you probably get this like a wealth from crypto. Or another thing is excessive consumption, and it's in this like a crazy green EU. It's only question of time when they will fine you because of excessive carbon footprint you generate. So it's more than crucial to follow the following steps. Avoid like a KYC purchases and use like a decentralized non-KYC exchanges. There are many decentralized crypto exchanges. If you're like a Monero fan, you should definitely check Havenodex, which is like a Monero fork of BISC. In Prague, or in Czech Republic and Central Europe, very famous P2P project for buying and selling any crypto is called Vexel. It's like a smartphone app. Strongly recommended. In Central Europe, it's highly popular, this application. Then, if it is possible, avoid crypto legal tax declaration. How you can do that legally? Just become a resident of territorial taxation country, which also means you cannot stay in any tax hell like a US or any EU country more than 6 months. Or another option, if you don't want to fill this crypto tax declaration, you should leave from the crypto loans. There are a lot of ways how to use your crypto, for example, Bitcoin, as a collateral and ask for like a stable coins and leave from these stable coins. And because it's crypto loan, it's not tax event, you don't need to make any tax declaration. You should also stay low profile. So for example, my recommendation is just to create anonymous company. It's super easy to create Seychelles company with Bitcoin, for example. And then you can use this Seychelles company to create like, for example, Anonymous, the US LLC company. And you can buy any property, anything using this Anonymous US LLC company. It's still possible. And you can pay for this service in crypto. You should also try to eliminate using fiat in your bank accounts. I think like having a lot of fiat, it's definitely not a good idea. And if you have enough money, you should at least consider to get a good tax residency, for example, Paraguay, Uruguay, Panama. Or if you have at least like $250,000, $250,000. There are a lot of beautiful Caribbean islands. For example, St. Lucia or Antigua and Barbuda. All these countries offer you for $250,000 or $300,000. Even if you can pay by crypto, there are like agencies that can help you with that. You can get second citizenship, second passport. And it's extremely useful, especially if you're a US citizen, because in this situation, you can renounce your US citizenship and basically you will become like a new person with no banking or fiat history. So you can use your Antigua or Antigua passport to open like a new bank account, and you never will ever pay any taxes if you don't stay in any country more than 6 months. And even now you can see like a hunt for the high-profile crypto people. Changpeng Zhao, CZ, Binance founder, He was pretty lucky because now he's free. He stayed in jail, I think only 3 months or 4 months. Roger Ver, like Bitcoin Jesus, he's like arrested and I think he's in jail now. Then we have Rose Ulbricht. We'll see if he'll be free the next January, February. I hope so. So the question is, who will be the next one? And what is just happening, and it's already started in these years, are super aggressive crypto wars 2024. And the goal of this crypto wars is just to eliminate projects that ensure cryptocurrency's privacy. Roman Storm, I think recently he was jailed for 10 years, no, or even 15 years, really a lot. Then also, like, we can see like there was arrest of Samurai Wallet founders. A lot of really cool, interesting privacy projects like Incognito is shut down now. Like mixing services like a Wasabi Wallet and Phoenix Wallet, they left the US. And Wasabi Wallet, they decided to disable CoinJoin functionality. So the question is, how rich and how powerful these crypto millionaires they have to be before they are arrested and jailed? Because I strongly believe if you're really rich, if you're really powerful, you will never end up in jail. So the question is, I think one of the reasons why CZ ended up in jail only for 4 months or 3 months is because he paid like I don't know, $1 or $2 billion, like it's really crazy money to the US government. 4 billion, like crazy money. So I strongly believe if you have like a lot of billions dollars, you usually never end up in jail. You have to be really wealthy, really like a powerful rich person. So the question is, when we will be like a super powerful and rich person? Now I'm mentioning like some examples of like wealthy and powerful people, and these people are willing and were willing to fight like the big like countries. For example, maybe you know the case between Elon Musk and Brazil. So basically, Elon Musk a few months ago he showed like a fucker to the Brazilian government, and he refused to censor X.com. And also, for example, like Apple had a legal battle with the FBI, and they won it. The same CZ paid just $4 billion, and he's free now. There are some really expected negative consequences related to new rising crypto aristocracy. It's pretty likely the crypto people, when they are more like rich, more wealthy, more powerful, there will be quite big likelihood of physical attacks, especially like a kidnapping, extortion. By the way, like a physical attacks are super common in Mexico. I know personally people who were kidnapped in Mexico. So you should be especially aware of these like physical attacks in Mexico. And it's quite likely that likelihood of this physical attack will increase in the future. But at the same time, I expect there will be like a rise of new dedicated security services that basically will care about all members of your family, and they will protect you against like a kidnapping, for example. At the same time, there will be like a completely new industry. Even now, this industry exists for crypto millionaires. How these rich people can buy real estate, stocks, company in a completely anonymous way. So they can remain low profile. Even now, I know some very rich people, and they use like anonymous companies to buy like any real estate, for example. And all these rich people, which will be like most crypto people in the future, they probably will use like multiple citizenships and passports just to have a better legal protection. Maybe you know that, like, for example, Snowden, he ended up in Moscow, not just because he likes like Russian government, Russian system, but because when he was flying via Moscow, like the US government, they decided to revoke his US passport. So basically, he didn't have any valid travel documents, so he basically was stuck in Moscow. For example, in Snowden, if he had like a citizenship and passport of Antigua or any Caribbean country, he could continue to Ecuador or any other country. So this is like a nice example that second passport may help him in this situation. So what we can see now is that decentralized crypto, I'm saying about any kind of crypto, is becoming the most powerful tool which is transforming this democratic society. Any democratic society is collectivist society. Collectivist society means that the majority of people always decide behind you. Collectivist society means that the government will decide for what you will pay, what will be done with your taxes, for example. And now what we can see, thanks to decentralized crypto, the current concept, the realm of collectivist society is transformed to an individualistic society. So when you stay completely in crypto, when you have like a good passport, good tax residency, you don't need to pay any taxes, and in a completely legal way, and you as an individual can completely decide for what you want to pay. So basically, in the following years, we can see transformation of collectivist society to individualistic society, thanks to crypto. If you're like a socialist, or if you're like a Democrat, you may say, okay, so I'm really afraid of this new tyranny of individuals, but you don't need to, because even now, these like super crazy individuals are in your government, and what the government does is against your personal against your interests, and it's basically they do just what reflect their personal interest. So, like in most government, they really don't care about their voters. At the same time, we can see we have now like a lot of Bitcoin philanthropic projects. For example, maybe you know Pineapple Funds. They distributed more than 5,000 Bitcoins to 60 charities. Then you have the Giving Block, and many other things. So I'm pretty sure that in the future, where we have like a powerful and rich individuals, these rich individuals, they will care. They will care about society, they will care about poor people, and these people will be socially conscious, and they will support the project they consider to be important. So, and the question is, okay, so it's quite likely we'll have like a new crypto aristocracy. When this crypto aristocracy survives, so I think crypto or Bitcoin just needs to go to the moon. So these crypto people will have enough resources to lobby their politicians who favor their interest. Because now, still, like a majority of people in society are no-coiners. So basically, we are living in a society who is controlled by democratic majority of no-coiners. And as we can see in many European countries like Slovakia, Denmark, Italy, these countries, they decided to to force people to leave, crypto people to leave. And so I can say like the EU, not only ECB, but the whole EU is strongly anti-crypto. They just want these people to like put away from the EU. But at the same time, we can see like a new crypto-friendly countries. I'm not saying only about like a Caribbean countries, but also, for example, Georgia is very crypto country with a 0% capital gain tax. Also, UAE, for example, and many other countries. And it's quite likely that these rich crypto individuals in the following years, they will just move to crypto-friendly country, and they will bring their wealth, their money, crypto. And then countries which will stay anti-crypto, they will collapse. Because as we know, like inflation, when we have like a hard money, like a Bitcoin, for example, cannot function at all. So I strongly believe, and most like also economists too, that these crypto-friendly countries, they will survive only because they will use like hard money, like Bitcoin, for example, and because all these crypto people will bring Bitcoin, for example, to these countries. When we have like a lot of rich, powerful crypto people, maybe we can expect return to aristocratic times. And I think it may not be necessarily a bad thing. Even now, like the richest countries in the world with the highest GDP per capita are like monarchies. For example, Qatar, for example, UAE or Brunei. So of course the crucial question we should always ask is, will this country with a new Bitcoin aristocracy, will this country provide enough personal freedom? If you want to analyze more deeply like how monarchy can work and why monarchy from the economical perspective can be better system than democracy, for example, I strongly recommend you to read this book, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Democracy, the God That Failed. Maybe you will change your opinion. As I told you before, democratic majority of no-coiners, these people, they will have like a political power. And because of these people, it's very likely the most countries, they will introduce CBDC, and they will fight like a hard money, like a Bitcoin. And it's very likely, together with the CBDC, they introduce UBI, because they will just say, okay, if you want to receive your universal basic income, it's possible, but we won't pay you in Bitcoin, we'll pay you only in our like a government digital currency. And something you should be aware of is that survival of central banks strongly depends on CBDC. If the current central banks do not transform themselves to CBDC, they won't be able to survive. And what you should be aware of too, the survival of current states, as we know, like national democracies, strongly depends on central banks. When the governments lose their power to issue, to print money, they will collapse. So what I want to tell you, CBDC is absolutely crucial for the current governments to survive. Or there is another option that, for example, some countries like El Salvador accept as an official currency Bitcoin, for example, or the US. But when this happens, just these facts will completely change character, like a political character of the society, because the government won't be able to issue new money and pay like a crazy, super expensive projects, because in that situation, like a capacity of of money will be just limited. The question is, what should I do with this? So as I told you, like, definitely avoid any KYC. Try to avoid any legal tax declarations. If it is possible, if you love traveling to Mexico, if you love traveling, if you love staying in Mexico, for example, up to 6 months, and then 5 months in your home country, you should consider to renounce your residency, permanent residency, and tax residencies in your home country, and get a good residency, tax residency in a territorial taxation country. If you are not able to travel so much, and you want to be tax-free, the only option how to do that is to live from the savings or to live from crypto loans. You don't need to be afraid of loans, because the richest people in the world, they live from loans. Just because loan is not a tax event. Or if it is possible, you should definitely avoid citizenship-based taxation, like, for example, in the US, or citizenship-based military service, when you have military service associated with your citizenship, or citizenship-based carbon footprint, which is only a question of time in the EU, I guess. Me personally, I'm trying to disconnect from all state or government services and just to stay low profile. So basically, if you want to own anything in the physical world, there are a lot of anonymous ways how you can achieve it. Stay safe, that's all, because it's very likely that you will be a crypto millionaire too, because the question is just when. Thanks a lot. Questions?
What do you think personally about residency in Mexico? Like, do you have any comments?
Okay. Mexico, unfortunately, doesn't have territorial taxation, which means like it is probably a good idea. It's very easy to get residency in Mexico, but if you stay in Mexico more than 6 months, you will become automatically tax resident of Mexico. And being tax resident of Mexico legally means you need to pay, you need to declare all the worldwide income and pay taxes from a worldwide income. Of course, like a Mexican government is not so powerful like the US government, so probably they won't be able to find that you have any income out of Mexico. But legally, if you stayed in Mexico more than 6 times, you have a duty to declare and pay taxes from a worldwide income.
Sorry, maybe my question was, because I'm a resident in Mexico.
Okay.
But what do you think about the residency in Mexico? Because for the first 4 years, as a temporary resident, you don't have to pay taxes. Only when you become a permanent.
That is correct.
Yeah. Okay.
How do you compare it to, for example, Paraguay?
Yeah, in like countries like Paraguay, countries like El Salvador, all Central American countries like Panama, Costa Rica, Guatemala, countries like Uruguay, all these countries, they have territorial taxation with a permanent residency, not only with the temporary residency, but the permanent residency. So for example, if you become permanent tax resident of Panama or Paraguay, and you have income strictly out of this country, you have no duty to pay or to declare any income. So for example, I'm personally tax resident of Paraguay, and because I don't stay in any country more than 6 months, I have a special application for that checks where I'm just staying. I don't need to declare or pay any taxes anywhere. Yeah, so that's what I recommend you. But in this situation, if you don't want to have tax liability in Mexico, you cannot live here like more than 6 months, because then you will be automatically considered to be tax resident of Mexico.
Same for El Salvador?
Yeah. In El Salvador, it's more complicated because if you want to be tax resident of Salvador, you have to stay there consequently at least 200 days a year. So basically, you need to stay in Salvador like 7 months, really a lot. And you cannot leave the country. And then after 7 months in El Salvador, they will say, okay, you are like a tax resident of El Salvador, and you don't need to declare and pay taxes from any income of Salvador. The other option is to create Salvadorian company and have like a local income in Salvador. That's how you also become like a tax resident of El Salvador. But in this situation, you need to pay taxes, which is really a lot from local income for a company like a local. You need to pay about 30% from local income as a Salvadorian company, which is pretty expensive. So Salvador is a good option only if you're willing to live there at least 200 days a year, otherwise not. This is also true for the most countries, like Uruguay, for example, when you need to live at least 6 months to be tax resident. Georgia, 6 months to be tax resident. What is pretty cool about Paraguay is probably the best country for tax residency, because to be a tax resident of Paraguay, you don't need to live there majority of the year. So basically, you don't need to live in Paraguay to be a tax resident of Paraguay. But at the same time, you cannot live anywhere else more than 6 months. So that's why Paraguay is super popular, so popular now. There's a microphone. You can ask here. Come here and ask.
Yeah, so you mentioned about anonymous offshore companies, that sort of thing. I actually have about 3 or 4 different offshore companies in different jurisdictions. Actually, though, the thing that's quite difficult is opening a bank account for the company anonymously. So I don't know if you've got, if you found any places that you can do that.
Okay, very good question. Usually, it's super easy to open the company anywhere in the world, like in any offshore country. It's super easy. The most difficult part is to open the bank account. If you have the company, for example, in Seychelles or Southern Lucia or any these typical offshore country, you probably never open the bank account for this company from this country. So what I can tell you, that's why you stay in crypto, because if you use Monero, for example, you can use any company in any jurisdictions. But your question is, what can I do about this? So it depends, because for example, there are countries like the US. In the US, it is possible to create something what is called US LLC disregarded company. And when you have US LLC disregarded company, you can issue invoices from your US LLC disregarded company, and you can receive this money to your personal bank account, for example, to Georgia. And it's completely legal. It's 100% legal. You don't break like a US tax code. So what I recommend to you, for example, in this situation, I can help you with that. We can open you like the bank account in Georgia, and you can use an offshore company and receive your money to a personal Georgian bank account, for example. And it's 100% account. But of course, you have to be able to explain to the bank that why you receive so much money to your personal bank account. But it's 100% legal. It doesn't break like a US tax code.
Do you know if Georgia has multi-currency bank?
Yeah, they have. Like a Bank of Georgia, they offer like a multi-currency bank account by default in dollars, euros, pounds, and lari, which is like a local Georgian shitcoin. And also optionally, you can open the bank account in Swiss francs, Czech crowns, whatever you want.
Do you need KYC?
For sure. Like it's not possible to open any bank account anywhere without KYC. But the cool thing about Georgian bank accounts, if you have tax residence in Paraguay or Panama or any territorial taxation country, you can use as your tax residency, for example, in Paraguay. So you can be like, for example, Mexican or European citizens with a tax residency in Paraguay who own the company in the US, and you open the bank account in Georgia, and it works perfectly. No questions? It's like it's super noisy.
Yeah. Not, I mean, somewhat of a question. I kind of agree with your what should I do list and so on, and your perspective on that. And I want to believe that crypto millionaires or billionaires at some point will shape the world to be a more free world.
I hope so.
Yeah. But with like Bitcoin, I have
if they don't end up in jail, that's the crucial.
Yeah, exactly. That's like what I'm alluding to, because like the more insight I get into the Bitcoin community, the wider community, I see that I have the feeling that the amount of libertarians, crypto anarchists, whatever, is like the percentage is much lower than, for example, with Monero or some other privacy projects. And also, most of them seem to buy their Bitcoin through KYC and hold them in custodial stuff. So, like the moment where governments decide to somewhat crack down on Bitcoin, it's basically like the possibility of Bitcoin being part of this creation of a more free world is over then. So, like, that's my worry. It's not really a question, but
you are basically saying like what the government can do, that they can say this is like a legal, like a whitelisted Bitcoin, KYC good Bitcoins, and any other Bitcoin is like just blacklisted and is illegal and you cannot use it. And because Bitcoin doesn't have fungibility like a Monero, it's pretty easy to make it. But what we can do, for example, we still have like a Bitcoin Lightning, for example. So even now, if you have like a blacklisted Bitcoins, you can open the Lightning channel and use this like a Lightning. So it'll be, this blacklisting and whitelisting will be pretty difficult to implement. I think so. We'll see. But this is like a real problem when we are trying to use like non-anonymous cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin that don't have like a fungibility.
Yeah. Thank you, Pavol. Let's give it up for Pavol. All right.
Ready? Yeah, I'll just need to switch out the. You want to introduce Sarang?
Alrighty. Pavol, thank you so much, man. I just want to see, did we get any chats? Nope. All right. I was looking to see if we were getting any chats from the live listeners. Do I get a stable coin and sell it to? All right. Well, yeah, guys, people listening at home, please continue to send your chats and your questions in the chats, and now we'll try to incorporate them and bring them up more during the Q&A. Next up, who do we have? We have Aaron, we have Sarang. He's coming up. He's giving a talk on Bulletproofs? Yes. On Bulletproofs. Bulletproofs, obviously he'll get into it, but super high level. Bulletproofs, a version of it was implemented into Monero. I guess it was 2018, and it was a big deal. It basically added a lot of efficiency to Monero in terms of how it was processing transactions in an encrypted way, and it vastly lowered the transaction fee and added efficiency to the network with regards to how things are processed. Obviously, he'll get into this on a much more technical level and explain it, but it's an important technology. It's cryptography that's been around for a while and has been improving, and it was one of the, correct me if I'm wrong, right? That was one of the biggest improvements in Monero when we originally implemented Bulletproofs.
Yeah, I think it was one of the bigger protocol updates.
But yeah, so Bulletproofs is still around, and I guess you're going to catch us up on where it's at and where it's headed. Yes. Thank you so much, man.
Hello. Thank you to everyone for coming. I'm Aaron. I'll be talking about Bulletproofs today. As I told people before, there will be a teeny bit of math here, only one math. There's a single math here, and if you don't like it, you don't have to pay attention to it. It's fine. This is my guarantee to you. So slides will be available. Some folks like to follow along. I'll have that link at the end as well if anyone wants it. First of all, I am currently head of research engineering lead at Alpin Labs, but some of the work that I'm going to talk about regarding bulletproofs in Monero was conducted while I was head of research at CipherStack as well. And obviously this is not professional advice of any kind. We're going to simplify some things, so don't take what I'm saying and try to build things with it. This is just to kind of give everyone a nice broad overview of bulletproofs type protocols in the Monero protocol more broadly. So, we're going to talk about bulletproofs a lot. I'm curious, had anyone heard of bulletproofs before walking in today? Some people? Nice. Yes, cool. That's good to know. If you haven't, that's also fine. We're actually going to talk about 4 different kinds or variations or flavors or odors of bulletproofs, whatever you want, and how they relate, how they're different, and how they're used in the Monero protocol. So, like I said, teeny bit of math, but don't worry, it'll be fine. So just to kind of talk about the context from whence bulletproofs arose in Monero. So in Monero, of course, transactions both consume and generate outputs. So a transaction in the middle of the slide there consumes, in this case, 3 previously generated outputs. So I'm spending those 3. And then in this case, I'm generating, say, 2 new outputs. So that's how transactions work. They generate outputs from consuming previous ones. But in the current Monero protocol, value is protected. So each of these outputs has associated to it a value, in addition to some kind of spend authority. But to protect the value, we represent that value by a sort of cryptographic blob called a commitment. So if you're just kind of looking at the blockchain, each of these outputs, which has a commitment, you can't see what that value is. It is possible for the sender and receiver to do that, but they use a different mechanism for it. And transactions in particular need to balance. So if I go back to the previous slide, the value, which is hidden in these blobs, of the 3 consumed outputs must match, after accounting for fees, the value generated in the transaction. That's how we're sure that there's no weird inflation going on. So in this case, maybe the 3 previously generated and then consumed outputs have values of, say, 1, 3, and 4 units. Monero, Pico Monero, whatever units you want. And say that the newly generated outputs have values of 2 and 6. If you do the math, 4 plus 3 plus 1 is 8, 2 plus 6 is also 8. That transaction balances. But what if I decided to be deviously clever? What if, when I was generating new outputs, I decided to throw a negative value to one of them? What would happen then? Well, new math as well. 1 plus 3 plus 4 for the old previously generated outputs on the input side of the transaction. What if I gave the value -1 and then 9 on the newly generated side? Well, -1 plus 9 is also 8, so technically that balances if I throw negative numbers in there. And why this is really, really bad is that because of the way this value is represented cryptographically, some of the underlying group structures, we call it, means that that negative number, that very small negative number, is actually an extremely large positive number. Just as an example, maybe -1 in this cryptographic language is actually, say, 10,000. It's actually much larger than that. In fact, small negative numbers in the cryptography that Monero uses are actually on the order of like 2 to the 252nd power. It's ridiculous, like just a bonkers, absurd amount of value. So in that case, that bottom equation, 1 plus 3 plus 4 on the input side equaling 10,000 plus 9 on the output side, that's actually valid, and that is like technically a valid balance equation. But obviously that's very bad, because I could have just sent that 10,000 unit output to myself, inflated the supply, and made myself incredibly wealthy. And again, like, we can't just look at these input and output equations on the blockchain to see if this sort of thing is happening, because these values are protected. The network can't see what they are. So what do we do? So, just to recap here, if value were allowed to be negative in Monero outputs, you could basically print an absurd amount of Monero, inflate the supply, and crucially, it would be undetectable. Like the worst of all possible worlds. So how do we stop this? Well, in Monero, we use so-called range proofs. Range proofs assert that these commitments that are protecting value protect only positive values. By positive value, I mean like a reasonable positive value, not like 2 to the 252nd crazy amount. We actually limit it to like 2 to the 64 in practice. And we need to not reveal the values when we're constructing these so-called range proofs. And that's where bulletproofs comes in. It turns out there are actually many different designs that you can use for these so-called range proofs that show that a value is a reasonable positive value without revealing it. So originally, the protocol used a range proof that was actually based on ring signatures called Borromean range proofs. They were extremely bulky, extremely slow to generate and verify, and they made transactions huge. So previously, the large bulk of a Monero transaction was just this one proof saying the amounts are positive. It's kind of crazy. But later, Bulletproofs came along, and I'll talk a little bit about the structure of Bulletproofs shortly. So Bulletproofs, they're small, they're speedy, we like them. Transaction size went down by a lot. So correspondingly, fees also went down. Everyone is very happy. But later still, we replaced Bulletproofs with an improvement called Bulletproofs Plus. The plus stands for better. And it turns out Bulletproofs Plus are a little bit smaller and a little bit faster, so we like them. I realize now that those icons are bad because a rocket ship is not smaller than a little race car, but it is definitely speedier at times. So, how do they work? This is going to be a super high-level overview. There's like a ton of extremely gory and ugly and interesting math that goes into it, but we'll take a very high-level view of how they work. So, it turns out that both Bulletproofs and Bulletproofs Plus, this improved Plus is better version, they use kind of a related technique under the hood. And that thing that's under the hood is called a vector inner product. We're going to talk just a little bit about what that means because it's kind of crucial to how they work. So in mathematics, a vector is, you can think of it as just like a list of numbers. A list of numbers is a vector. And an inner product is a way to take two of those lists and combine them together into a number. That's it. That's all we really have to know. Why do we care about this? The reason we care about it is because they allow us to take any value, so like the value of an output in Monero, and break it up into powers of 2. Why powers of 2? Because it turns out both computers and cryptography really like powers of 2. I can explain later if you want, but it turns out you can always do this. If you've heard the term binary decomposition, that's all this is. If you haven't, that's fine. So for example, if my output has a value of, say, 11, I can break that up into powers of 2. 1 is a power of 2, it's 2 to the 0. 2, of course, is a power of 2, it's 2 to the 1. And in this case, 8 also goes there, that's 2 to the power of 3. Notice 1 plus 2 plus 8, the sum of these powers of 2 gives me a value 11. Turns out you can do this with any value you want. This thing always works. So the trickery that Bulletproofs tells us to do is that after we have broken up our value into powers of 2 like this, I build two vectors, two lists of numbers. First list vector is just all of the powers of 2 that we could have possibly used, even the ones we didn't use. In this case, all the powers of 2 are 1, 2, 4, 8, and then we can stop. And then we make another vector that says, which of the powers did we actually use? Well, we said we used 1, 2, and 8, so I'll throw a 1 in there in those corresponding spots, 0 everywhere else. So I got two vectors, one of which has all the possible powers of 2, one of which indicates which ones we used to build our value, 11. And the inner product, which I said an inner product is just a way of combining two of these so-called vectors or lists of numbers into a number. To compute the inner product, what I do is I go slot by slot, multiply those, and then add them all together. So I have that top list of numbers, 1, 2, 4, and 8. That bottom list of numbers, the ones that we selected. And if you kind of follow along here on the slide, multiply each of the slots together, and on the bottom, add them all up. That does exactly what we did before with this binary decomposition, and I get 11 back again. So the notation that we would use for that, we use a little dot notation to combine those two lists together, and I get 11. So that's how we can turn a value into this kind of breaking apart into a vector inner product. So the thing that we wrote there, that's a vector inner product, an expression that combines two lists of numbers together to give me the value I want. So that's the overall idea behind Bulletproofs and Bulletproofs Plus at a super high level. So what? Why do this? Why does Bulletproofs care about this? So it turns out that the guts of both Bulletproofs and the newer Bulletproofs Plus, they say that if you can take a problem, and it can be one of many different kinds of problems in certain classes of problems, you can take certain mathematical problems, and if you can turn them and express them as a vector inner product, you can turn that into a small and speedy zero-knowledge proof that asserts something about that problem. So in our case, being able to take this value decomposition, break it up into this so-called inner product, the guts of Bulletproofs lets us turn that into this range proof that asserts that this number is positive and represented by these powers of 2 in that way. You get like these zero-knowledge properties that are really nice that don't leak information, but it also makes things very small and very, very speedy. So because we can break down a value into an inner product, we can use Bulletproofs or Bulletproofs Plus guts to secretly prove that that is a positive number, and that's what we wanted in the end. But wait, there's more. We had bulletproofs. We added a plus to the end to make bulletproofs plus. They work slightly differently under the hood, but they're related. But then bulletproofs plus plus came along. We added a second plus to make it even better. Now, its design, it turns out, is actually much more distinct between that and bulletproofs plus. So there's a bit more of like a conceptual gap between how they work. And it turns out it's a lot more complex. This design, the design of bulletproofs plus plus, actually was considered for the Monero protocol as yet another range-proof upgrade, because you get very small proofs that are fast. But it was rejected at the time due to both the fact that it's very complex, kind of conceptually and also to implement. And there was also some issues with the security analysis that folks weren't necessarily happy with. But in theory, that dashed line over there means, in theory, we could use bulletproofs plus plus to do the same thing. Make this assertion about positive numbers in our value commitments in a zero-knowledge way. Maybe someday there will be, I don't know, a third plus. I don't know. Or maybe we'll come up with better names. I think we should stop just adding pluses to things. There's so many good names out there. Now, the way to think about bulletproofs and bulletproofs plus, at least, and to some extent bulletproofs plus plus, is to think of it kind of like a stack. And we kind of hinted at this whole stack approach. But the design of these is kind of like a stack of pancakes. The top of the stack, in this case, is kind of this range stuff, where we took that value and we turned it into an inner product by breaking it up into powers of 2. And then the bottom of the stack is kind of like the inner product, turn it into a proof guts, where once we have that inner product statement, we can turn that into a proof. So that's kind of like the way that this stack approach works. So the way to think about it in this case is you have like this range work that we did when we showed the inner product, broke that down into the middle into a statement about inner products, and then the bulletproofs and bulletproofs plus machinery lets us turn that into a proof. So kind of a top layer and a bottom layer of the stack. But it turns out that you can do a lot more. I said that there are a lot of different problems mathematically that you can kind of express as an inner product, not just range. So it turns out you can replace the top of the stack, which was just our range problem, with something else. And it turns out that you can instead prove that certain kinds of like complex mathematical programs are executed correctly. So we often call this like an arithmetic circuit design, if you care about that. But what's cool about this is it makes bulletproofs designs a lot more general than just range proofs. We can use them for a lot more things. And this means that we can build cool protocols using kind of the same machinery. So the updated stack would be, well, we still have that inner product turning into a proof thing at the bottom, but we can replace the range problem, which we were able to express as an inner product, with a much more general kind of program problem, where we take a more complex mathematical program, express that as an inner product, and then generate a proof of it. And I'll explain why we care about this in a second. So how would this particular generalization apply to Monero? Turns out it can. So we can actually use either of the bulletproofs or the bulletproofs plus, and technically bulletproofs plus plus, for this whole like prove something about a complex formalized program. And it turns out the thing that we care about, which I'm sure Luke talked about before. I was not here. I just arrived from the airport. I missed his talk. Did you talk about full chain membership proofs, Luke? Cool. Luke talked about that. So if you were here or if you later watch his video, this will be hopefully more motivated. But it turns out we can use this bulletproofs and bulletproofs plus type program proof approach to generate these so-called full chain membership proofs. So what these do is these effectively replace Monero's ring signature, and a Monero ring signature authorizes a transaction and proves that the output being consumed is part of a specified, usually very small set of possible signers. And full chain membership proofs, effectively, they maximally expand the set of possible signers, like all the way through to like the history of the chain, meaning that any output that's being consumed in a transaction could be any output from the history of the chain. So they're very cool, and it turns out you can use these bulletproofs or bulletproofs plus program type designs in order to instantiate them. So under the hood, the way that full chain membership proofs work is they basically set up this kind of formalized program that shows that a consumed output is part of like a tree design. And that's the program that you would throw into the top of this stack to generate a proof of. Very roughly speaking. There's a lot more that goes into it. Yes, Luke is probably going to nod. Yeah, whatever. There's actually a lot more that goes into it. But roughly speaking, that's the way it works. But I mentioned that this works in both bulletproofs and in bulletproofs plus, because they have a related design. So because the program proofs work in both bulletproofs and bulletproofs plus, how do we choose which one to use? Well, it turns out that because of the way that this program is structured and kind of its complexity, both of the designs, if just kind of natively used on their own, would still give a pretty bulky and slow proof, even though they generally let you make very small and speedy proofs. So one solution is to actually modify how Bulletproofs originally turns the program structure into this inner product problem. So kind of the top layer of the stack. Turns out we can take Bulletproofs, rip out the top layer of the stack, and put a modified version in there. We call that generalized Bulletproofs. So the modification to Bulletproofs, generalized Bulletproofs, it was actually originally suggested as part of a paper called Curve Trees, if you may have heard of that, that introduced this kind of tree idea. But it wasn't actually proven at the time that like generalization, that modification of the top layer was actually secure. It was hypothesized to be secure, there was some code for it, but there wasn't a security proof. So part of my work with CipherStack actually went and proved that the design was secure and formalized it a bit more. So basically showing that it is in fact a secure top layer of this like bulletproof stack. And we had hoped that a similar modification could work with Bulletproofs Plus, which could like shrink the proofs by a little bit and maybe make them faster, but we couldn't figure it out. So it could be possible, but it was much more straightforward to do with the original Bulletproofs design. And Bulletproofs also let us do other fun things. They have all sorts of little goodies. There's at least 2 other fun tricks that you can do with them. There are more, but these are the kind of the big ones. One of which is called aggregation. So aggregation basically lets you take multiple ranges, multiple outputs, or multiple programs, in fact, and generate one proof for all of them at the same time, which is really cool. It's very cool in curve trees because of the way that they're structured. You need to represent things about multiple programs. And in the current Monero protocol, transactions contain multiple outputs. And each of those outputs has its own secured, protected value, and therefore needs a range proof. So instead of doing multiple range proofs, each of which is small, but we still need multiple ones of them, we can just basically aggregate all those together into one single small proof, which is really neat. And the second one is called batch verification. And that lets us check and basically assert the validity of multiple proofs for multiple transactions all at the same time super efficiently. That did not work with the previous like ring signature-based design that was originally used in Monero. And this is particularly useful for things like syncing, where you need to check the validity of a ton of different proofs on the chain. So aggregation is kind of on the proving side, and batch verification is on like the verification side. And there's more tricks that they do too, which is pretty cool. So we have kind of a variety of designs here. Some of them are related more than others, and they're kind of from Monero's past, the present, and maybe even the future. So just to kind of sum up the way that these have been like structured in the protocol over time. So previously in the past, we had used Bulletproofs, the original design, for range proving. But then we got Bulletproofs Plus. That is used right now, down arrow, right here. Also for range proofs, same thing. Basically, we're able to rip out the original Bulletproofs design, plop in the Bulletproofs Plus design, really cool. Generalized Bulletproofs we mentioned, where we kind of modify the top layer of the Bulletproof stack to make it work better with these full chain membership proofs. So generalized Bulletproofs are a possible future that looks quite promising, and that would be used for the full chain membership proof program proof that we discussed. And then Bulletproofs Plus really doesn't have like a definite spot in the Monero kind of protocol soup at the moment, but it could be used for range proofs if desired, and possibly, we haven't really looked into this, possibly full chain membership proof program proofs. But I don't know if anyone else has looked into this, but I certainly haven't. But still, very cool designs, all of which are related in some ways, all of which have interesting kind of consequences for the Monero protocol. So I wanted to finish early to kind of pull us back on schedule a bit, but always open to emails if folks have questions, or come find me afterwards. These slides, if anyone wants to look at them later, they don't look great. It's just a bunch of clip art that I found. They're available on GitHub too if you're really into that. Otherwise, if we do have time for questions, could probably take some now. So, thank you. I probably should come up to a microphone so that everyone can hear on the streams and whatnot. Here, we'll kind of switch off maybe.
Only a very simple one. Is there a place where we can go to look at the documentation for this sort of thing?
Sorry, is this one working as well? Or? No. Oh, all right, cool. So you're just wondering, like, so the question is just about basically, are Bulletproofs documented?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So.
But where can you go to see the documentation?
Oh yes. So I'm just gonna flip through this very, very fast. I'm going to keep going. It's going to come up soon. There we go. Bulletproofs was originally introduced, kind of its formalization, its protocol description, and its security proofs in a preprint, which is actually at that starred link over there. And Bulletproofs Plus was introduced in a preprint as well, that again showed its protocol description, formalization, and security proofs down there. It's pretty dense reading, not going to lie. The implementations of both of those are, of course, available on the Monero repo. And granted, Monero's not the only implementation of these. You can find implementations elsewhere. And then Bulletproofs Plus was introduced in that preprint. So again, see the slides later. You can find that, or just search the internet. And then the curve trees stuff, which uses these. There is some information on full chain membership proofs more specifically at Luke's repository there. And curve trees, which is part of the kind of the stack of guts of all of this, is at that preprint. So I don't know if you call it documentation in the more software engineering sense, but it does go through the math and the protocol and all the cryptography behind them. So yes, see the slides. They're all linked there. Were there any more questions?
Cool. All right, let's give it up for Sarang.
All right, thank you.